misfits, one and all, to tonight's episode of Call Me Skeptical. The origin of life? Natural or supernatural? I'm not seeing anything up there. Where tonight we are opening up the internet phone lines to see if someone, please, can help us understand if life came about by natural or a supernatural means. So won't you join James W. and myself, Amy Newman, for a naturally good time? Oh my. Woohoo! That's right. Thank you, everyone out there, for joining us on the intertubes. I can't believe they shove that much content through that little of a tube. Oh, but
it's a miracle.
It is a miracle, ladies and gentlemen, or it's the tech guy. If you're feeling fancy, please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe, because then you gain access to that bell icon, which can be set to all, to join our live streams. What's up, interwebs? During the show, feel free to tag James W. or myself in chat at Amy Newman with your thoughts, questions, and one-liners, because that makes it easier for us to see your comment. Furthermore, we are, admittedly, a skeptic channel, including the two schmucks that you see before you. However, Call Me Skeptical is specifically looking for views that don't agree with our own. So if you fit the bill, then the link to join the show will soon head into chat and onto the screen. Though we also love people who do agree with us, atheists, skeptics, and science-minded people. Feel free to call, or rather click in. Though if you think the world is 6,000 years old, that evolution is a hoax, or that the world is flat, well then, OG Willigers, you should speak to us right away.
Who are you going to call? Amy.
That's right, for a good night, or at least a good weekend. Anyway, tonight's housekeeping is sponsored, of course.
That's our executive producer, Regis.
That's right.
He always keeps a watchful eye on everything.
And he always calls out nonsense. I really like to think that Gizmo has his pulse on skepticism.
He may be the next one to debate Ken Hovind. You want to debate Ken Hovind, Gizmo?
I don't really know if that's a fair debate. Maybe Ken Hovind can have someone else with him.
Oh, Matt Powell, yeah. They could do...
there you go. It could be the dynamic duo. Like Batman and Robin. And I like to think of both of them in spandex. Anyway, sending love to us from the Atheist Round Table. Boom, 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 boom. And also, Tang Gang Yo, connecting all of the atheist and the non-believer community. You can find them here on YouTube and at tart.live, sending love to us. And also love to the fantastic and lovable Ian Davenport, helping us level up in the non-believer community, especially as we listen to creationist claims Like, it's a watch. Everything's a watch. You know how you have to breathe, and then you also have to drink, and it goes down the same hole, and you may die? That's what I like to think of intelligently designed organs. Yes. It's exactly how all engineers would do it. But he's a god, so he clearly knows better than us.
I can't think of a better design.
Neither can I. In fact, when we hear these claims, it makes us and a grumpy old cuss go bleep, bleep, bleep. Because, I don't know, they're just a little bit, they hate to call the crazy word. And people aren't crazy. What's the word? Not sound? Not sound. Doesn't have good evidence. Even when they get it into syllogistic form, oftentimes valid, not sound, because the premises aren't true.
They belong in a padded room.
But we love them. We're sending love. And also, we are 3 princesses in 1 to Diana Smith as we gather the
Thank you, Diana.
community in 1. And we kind of do it better at the non-believer community, if I do say so myself, because we're not schismatic.
Speaking of that, I could just imagine our good buddy Little Pee-Pee being hauled off by the orderlies and being put in a padded room, screaming about, "It's a code! It's a code, I told you!" Yeah.
Honestly, LPP, his story about the whole surviving the incident, and I think the
it's kind of falling
fantastic
apart.
and lovable Pat Lowinger, I think he was the one who brought this up the other day, or someone that was on a panel said it's never good things that lead people to God. It's always like something terrible happened, and then I had to find God. Oh my lordy, I was addicted to this and then I needed to find Jesus. It's never like the ice cream was so amazing. And look, I was an atheist and then I went to Cold Stone Creamery. And I mean, guys, I don't know what else to say but to put that argument forward for the existence of God. It's never
And then I asked him, I said, "God, are you real?" And he answered me, "Yes, I'm real."
He said, "Yes, I work at Ben & Jerry's."
And then I said, "Now, if you are the real God, who is the Lord Jesus Christ, and is the Father, and, because he's Jesus and God, and both at the same time."
I like to think of God as more daddy, but whatever you're into, folks.
Tell me what I had. Tell me what we had for dinner last night. And you know what the Lord said? The Lord said I had Chipotle, and it was really good. He was right. So there you go.
I mean, it is those types of miraculous events that I like to think point in the direction of a God. But no, it's always that, I was, was drowning, and then at the last second I got pulled up, and therefore, you know what? I think that God was actually meaning me to spread the one true faith. It wasn't that I wasn't wearing a life vest correctly. It was definitely that God wanted to teach me a lesson.
And then the human came in and saved me, but that's because God made that happen, right?
Exactly. Look, if it's good, God did it. If it's bad, it's a mystery, and we have to learn from God's plan. Heads, I win. Tails, you lose, James. It sucks, but it's the big G-man over there. And thank you so much, Pat. Woo-hoo.
Thanks, Pat. Speaking of G-man, Darth Dawkins is going to be debating on Praise's channel tomorrow. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on, Praise?
I do have to say, I am very interested when Darth attempts to debate anyone, because that means that a other person actually has to have a say in the conversation. So good luck.
And it's a theology debate. Darth usually avoids that like the plague.
A pre-supper is going to have to defend what they believe, or at least that is the premise of a debate. We'll see what happens. But we're sending love to Dale Pastel, who is equally as skeptical of a presuppositional apologist actually presenting what they believe in. That's between them and their therapist. Anyway, we're sending love to them.
Yeah.
And we're sending love to Dale Pastel. And
Thanks,
we're
Dale.
also sending love to Dave Gard, who reminds us that, it might be a worldwide conspiracy, or it could be that the Earth is round. It could be that all of the countries aren't working
equally likely. You've got two equally likely scenarios. It's just hard to tell which is which.
And James, why don't they ever just teach the controversy? Well, we do. In fact, there was a controversy thousands of years ago, even though there was information to know the Earth was round thousands of years ago.
Oh, you mean we shouldn't teach biology because it contradicts with my fables, and that triggers me? So therefore, we need to just pretend that we don't know anything about biology.
It's true.
Just
we need to
pretend.
Teach my specific version of theology, because that's how you know it's true. It says so in my book. And, if the other guy says that his book's true, it's wrong. And you know how it's wrong? It actually says so in my book.
But you see, the Bible is very clear that Jesus was God. Plus, he said so, which is good enough for me.
It's true. There's a book. The book said a thing. Case closed, ladies and gentlemen. That's how it works.
It doesn't get more open and shut than that.
Yes. Though I'll keep on reminding everyone I can at the top of my lungs, we could burn every science textbook today, and that will never get rid of any scientific fact that we have discovered, which is the key word. In fact, one day, if someone would rediscover all of those same scientific facts, in fact, the speed of light would still be the speed of light. Funny how that works. But sending love and the difference between science and religion to Scott Duke.
Scott Duke
reminds us that, we are not the dominion. We do not reign supreme other animals, even though you could have a taco supreme, and that does make us kind of cool. So, we got that going for us.
A Doritos Locos Taco Supreme, that would be even better.
Some may call that an abomination against God. I like to call it a good night out. But sending love to Scott Duke and sending love to Regis, who reminds us that we have a skeptic Bible study on this channel. We have just put Numbers back on the shelf. The fourth book of the Bible, and we have opened Deuteronomy and are having a grand old time because, we're going through the greatest hits right now.
I mean, right away, we just started killing a bunch of people as soon as the book started. It can't get much better than that, right?
Exactly.
Reaping genocide on your neighbors.
What I like about Moses telling this story, spoiler alert, he's been given a death sentence. So he's basically like, look, God hates you for all of this shit. I'm about to die. Isn't it great being the chosen people? Anyway, sending love to Regis, and last, but certainly not least, we are sending love to Rachel Holland.
Good slavery.
No TOS gods, no TOS. But yes, biblical slavery, it's really more like a works program. James, it's really the kind, nice slavery. They weren't consenting or any of that stuff, but bubble wrap somewhere, probably. They had smiles.
They had their ear bored through the doorpost. I mean, it's fun.
There's no evidence there wasn't a casual Friday. Could have been.
And
so you don't know. But we are sending love to all of our Patreons. You are enable us to make all of this fun content at patreon.com/Amy Newman. We are sending love to you. We are sending love to our mods, all of the lovely people in chat, and of course, viewers like you.
Oh, you have a special place in our hearts.
I believe a naturally occurring heart, but who knows? Maybe someone else will disagree with us. We are actually about to switch into callers.
Uh-oh.
So I am going to be sending the link into stream as we call me skeptical on the origin of life or the supernatural. And I think it's going to be a
magic versus reality. Real versus not real.
And with that, it's into chat if you would like to come join us. But before we go to actual callers, and as we're getting them queued up,
grab out your paper and pencil and take notes, folks.
That's right, baby. Because the origin of life, natural or supernatural? Well, there is currently, literally, it is timing. Okay, I can't help it, folks. Sponsored by kitties, puppies. We really do love. It doesn't matter what your fur baby or scale baby is. We love them, and we don't have dominion over them. In fact, some would say they sometimes have us trained, depending on who you're asking.
Yeah.
Sensing love. And all right, before we get those callers queued up, the origin of life. Natural or supernatural? Well, there is currently no good evidence that the supernatural has or will produce anything. In contrast, all of the current empirical data points to phenomena coming about by a natural means. So when we're talking about the origin of life, what we're talking about is how did life come about naturally? This happened 4.5 billion years ago, rising only shortly after the Earth itself came to be. Back when the environment was still hot, volcanic, and hostile to what we see from today. Thus, to find where life arose, we have to look deep into the ocean and around vents, where simple compounds made of organic material began to grow more complex. The first life that came about drew sources of energy around these hydrothermal vents and from the sun itself. Of course, predator organisms soon found their niches, and the circle of life began to take place. With evolution, or the natural selection of genes based on an organism's environment, which is how we got the diverse life that we see today. So when someone asks me, is the origin of life natural or supernatural? All of the current evidence leans towards the natural. There are good reasons for this to be. We, along with Mars, live within the circumstellar habitable zone, or the part circling the sun that's not on fire or frozen, allowing liquid water to dominate much of the Earth's surface. A chemical that acts weird, freezing downwards and letting life survive in the warmth underneath, which lets carbon, or as John Stewart says, the slut of the periodic table, combine with more elements than all others combined. Thus, it naturally appears life, as we know it, finds a way. Thank you. And all right, with that, James, how are you tonight? And what do you think? We gonna evolve into a good time?
Well, we'll certainly be trying to, but yeah, that was a very good introduction, and I don't really know how much more I can add to that, but yeah. So right now we don't have a complete model for abiogenesis. We don't know exactly how it happened. We've got a few hypotheses that we're working on. I tend to like the RNA world hypothesis, or one variant of that. I think that's going to produce some results at some point in the future, but we can be pretty sure that when we do find an answer to this question, it will be through natural means, because that's always happened before 100% of the time. Every time magic or the supernatural has ever been postulated as an answer to a phenomenon, when we actually find that answer, it turns out there's no magic. It all works through natural processes every time, every single time. And the gaps in our knowledge have shrunk to the point where the theists, the God of the Gaps people, really only have two main areas that they've retreated to, because we've chased them out of everything else, and that's origin of the universe, origin of life. Everything else we have pretty good understanding of, and it doesn't require God, it doesn't require magic. But so they're definitely going to defend their last two strongholds very fiercely. And they're some of the hardest questions we've ever thought about as a species. They're some of the most difficult things that, origin of life had happened so long ago and somewhere on the earth, and we don't know exactly what the conditions were at the time when it happened. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, but thankfully we are still doing that work, because we're not content to sit around and say, oh, I guess maybe just God poof life out of nothing. If that's a satisfactory explanation for you, then okay, but I'm not satisfied with that. And we have to ask ourselves, so when we look at life, when we look at and understand life, organic chemistry, we get into the cell and kind of lift the hood up and see what's going on under the hood in there, you're going to see what's happening inside life is exactly the same thing happening everywhere else. In fact, it's the only thing that ever happens because nothing else can happen. You've got matter and energy obeying the laws of physics. Even inside a cell, the laws of physics apply. There's nothing happening inside of a cell that is magic, that could happen any other way. Of course, it couldn't happen another way because you would need new physics in order for something else to happen. So, if life functions without the use of magic, if natural processes are enough to allow life to grow and prosper and function and live, why would we conclude then that it must have had magic to get the whole thing started? That doesn't follow. It doesn't require magic to operate. It didn't require magic to get it started either. And we know that in terms of design, we know that people make watches. We know that paintings have painters because we know that people make them. We know that Ford and Chevy make cars. We don't know anything about a universe creating, life creating genie that poofs animals out of nothing. We've never seen one of those. We don't know that one exists, and it seems very improbable anyway. Be that as it may, if one did exist, you'd think they'd be able to provide some sort of tangible evidence. You'd think they would have some type of something to bring to the table other than an old book says so. And I don't think we're going to be satisfied with that, but thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much, James. And all right, we are about to go into our first caller. But if you would like to come on board and call us, the link is both in chat, pinned, and on screen. Doesn't matter if you are on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook. Come on and say hi. We are calling me skeptical on is the origin of life natural or supernatural? And we do give priority to those who disagree with us.
That's right, X Music. I think that's the Scientology model, the souls in the volcanoes. I think that's one of L. Ron Hubbard's claims.
Ooh. Thank you so very much, Chris G. I just want to say every bit helps. And so I can honestly not thank you enough. Everyone out there, all of our content, at least for like our main shows, we want it to be free, but then we also want to give really unique perks to our Patreon supporters, including I think a Patreon only stream may also be in the future. We also want to do more things like talk skeptic to me and get more user-driven content along with a whole bunch of more content from just our community page and just the community in general. So thank you so much, and thank you.
Maybe having the Patreons pick a topic maybe once a month.
That might be a fantastic idea. Maybe doing more polls and things like that.
Give them like 4 or 5 options and see what they want us to do.
Exactly. Though, if you disagree once again with anything we say or have said in our openers, now is the time to jump on board because we are about to open up the first phone call with Nick as we call me skeptical, the origin of life, natural or supernatural, pseudo-natural, whatever PR politically correct word they're coming up.
All right. Let's hear from you.
That's right. We're bringing in Nick. We are having fun. Woohoo! What is up, Nick? We're sending love.
Jay, that was just so audible. Just like, oh, dear Lord, really? That guy again. He's just like, well, yeah, I know the Hume fanboy is here, but I got to tell you this too, which is, I do have to disagree with James. First of all, I'm still crying. I just kind of like that opening was so emotional, especially about the slutty carbon thing. It was just like, it's just so. It was nice. It was really nice. But no, I do have to disagree with James on one thing. There's one other sort of gaps thing. It's probably about the best evidence I've ever heard of for God, and that's Justin Bieber, because I honestly think that proves that there probably is a God and he really doesn't fucking like us, because I can't imagine anything else that could create. Justin Bieber is just a plague on. I know. I
was going to say, sure, it's not evidence of Satan, but it really, I guess you could go either way on that one.
It could go either way, but even Satan had his limits. I mean, God is the one who's just like, let's murder lots of people.
Not even Satan's a believer. That's what you're trying to say.
But I mean, it is a good point. But because the Christians are always like, look at the trees, look at how beautiful everything is. They love to give God credit for the things that are nice, but they don't give God credit for the things that are not nice, like Justin Bieber or.
Okay, so I'm throwing out. I just need to make a correction. I am totally wearing pants. Everybody knows I'm wearing pants. The reason I don't stand up is because I want to have you prove your faith. That if I stand up and show you the pants, then it's like then what's the point in believing anymore? So I don't want to deny you or rob you of that.
Amy would rather just imagine that there's spandex, and you wouldn't want to spoil her fun by proving it wrong.
Well, it is
let
spandex.
Let her imagine the spandex.
It is spandex, but $400 spandex, which is easier to find than you think.
$400 sparkle spandex. Nick, I want to thank you for being a trendsetter on this podcast.
Exactly.
Very avant-garde, Nick.
Yep, I'll never be able to show my face anywhere else again, but here at least I'll be welcome.
And I will say, before we get to the topic at hand, Nick, I do have to interrupt you. The haters, they're just coming out already.
Oh dear Lord, I know. Yeah. Yeah, let's see, YouTube probation. Actually, while it is true, actually, our last show got struck 4 times, and we're having to work through all 4 strikes simultaneously. That's a lot of fun.
You got 4 strikes. How'd you do that? How'd you manage that?
We decided to talk about Jordan Peterson.
Such a naughty boy.
That. Yeah, that was people were not pleased. So yeah, that's ongoing.
Nonetheless, we are calling me skeptical tonight on the origin of life, supernatural, natural. Those are the buckets we have available tonight. Nick, what are your thoughts?
Oh, the same BS as always. It could easily be supernatural, obviously, but there's no evidence for that. You can't start out assuming that it is. Probably shouldn't start out assuming that's not either, and just see where the evidence lies. The reality is, again, we've talked God of the gaps, and I think James was. And listen, if I'm telling you that I think I agree with James, then that's a high bar to clear for me to be willing to admit that in public. But it's another gaps issue, and there's a whole bunch of. We hear all the time, okay, the probability against life being here. And I was just like, well, it depends on how you break those probabilities down. First of all, I've heard people say, well, you can do a Bayesian, but, Bayesian needs priors. And we don't have any priors. Where the hell are the priors? How are you going to do priors on Bayesian? The other problem is there is a good deal of evidence for a multiverse. So a larger cosmos, other universes. And we don't know. Let's assume for a second there is. It seems to me actually rather reasonable and intuitive to think that there must be other ones. There's been more planets, there's been more stars. Every time we're like, this is the only solar system that could possibly exist. Oh, no, there are more solar systems. So why are we sitting there saying that there could only be one universe? So I think there's probably more. But there's now some evidence.
Multiverse of multiverses, right?
There could. Who the hell knows? Yeah, and it wouldn't shock me. And I think it makes more sense than not. But okay, so let's just for the sake of argument assume that there's more out there. Makes sense. We've got some evidence to support it. Can't prove it, but we've got some evidence to support it. Okay. Let's assume that life is really rare, like 1 in 100 trillion universes. But we don't know how many universes there are out there. And if it's like our universe and as many planets as there are here, there could be so many that even at those odds, you could find life just about everywhere because we don't know how many universes are created. Again, we don't know the priors. We don't know what we're starting with. And so we are sitting here from the position of life saying, well, what are the odds? What are the odds? Well, first of all, we have absolutely no idea. And second of all, even if we could demonstrate that the odds are really low, since we don't know how many universes there are, since we don't know how many planets there are, and we're starting to learn there's a lot of friggin' planets. It's sort of like, I'm unmoved by this. The odds are low kind of thing. And the argument I also argue too is that, for the fine tuning, again, if every single universe is constructed differently and therefore there's no life on any, I totally saw that. Amy,
Look,
I totally saw that. It's like the dirty, like, just like, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Something like that.
Sure. That's what that was. Okay. That's what we'll say it was. I think a lie agreed upon is the narrative for this show. I'm cool with that.
That's a story and we're sticking to it.
Yeah. So, yeah. And it just gets it. So, I mean, if any of the conditions of this universe were different, they say life could not exist. We don't know that. This life could not exist, but it's equally possible that something else could have come up wildly different than us. And it would be sitting there saying, well, we couldn't have life if anything else had changed. It's just like anything in this position. It's the same thing as I say all the time. You look up, the sun is clearly moving. Yeah.
The thing that sticks out is that life appeared on Earth not very long after the conditions were even possible where it could have appeared. It's not like the Earth had to sit for 20 billion years waiting for life to arise. It happened in almost the blink of an eye in the terms of cosmic time. I mean, that could be a one-off. That could be, way faster than it normally takes, or it could be that's just how long it takes. I don't know.
In fact, I would say it seems like
you have a small sample.
If the conditions are good enough, it appears that life arises, like you were saying, right away. It seems that once you have a good environment for it, it's almost like you have a harder time for life not popping from this type of planet.
And when we say right away, we mean possibly several million years. But that is basically right away in terms of the cosmic time.
Well, and let me suggest the other way. I take a different approach if I was going to do a Bayesian. I don't even know if you can really apply a Bayesian analysis this way, but I'd be a little surprised if you couldn't. But so the way I look at it is, okay, how many times have we made the claim that we are original in some way? Again, we have the only sun in the entire galaxy. And that's what Bruno was executed for, right? Was because he said, oh, guess what? The sun is just like, it's an average thing. All the other stars are just suns. And the church is like, oh, you have to die. And, how many times have we said, okay, we're the only galaxy, we're the only universe, or universe is still outstanding, but only solar system, only planet, only whatever, and we're wrong. And then every time we're wrong, it's like we're actually dead average. We are dead friggin' average every time. So now the question is, as James said, okay,
they used to say we're the only planet with water.
Yeah. So now it's sort of like, well, all of these things are so much more abundant and common. And every time we think we're unique, we are just basically dead middle of the road average on absolutely everything. So now we have life that came out reasonably quickly, like James pointed out. So it's like, okay, given our penchant to think that we are unique, special, and everything we do is absolutely just the center of the universe all the time, we've been wrong every single time. What's the likelihood, given our track record, that this is going to follow that path, or it's going to turn out it's average, just like every other time that we've sat there and said, it's just like, I don't, and yeah, it's just, listen, yeah, you guys know my position on this. I'd love it if there was something supernatural and all these things, but we're essentially very complicated robots, and that's about.
I do have to just contrast the answer you just gave and the person that you had before, because you did have a critic. So I want to feel like we are an empirical skeptic-based channel here, and I like peer review. So here's another data point. We have the lovely and fantastic Biddy Buddha.
Well.
Woo-hoo. In fact, you can find both Biddy and Pat at youtube.com/BiddyBuddha_. So clearly you get both sides, no matter. Viewpoint.
I appreciate that, Biddy, so much. The 20 is in the mail. Thank you for that. Yeah.
Get your spandex at the In Time merch store.
That's right.
We don't have that on In Time merch. We don't. We should. That's an oversight. That's clear. I'm thinking of just sending, making up a one-off pair and just sending it to Amy, just because it's just like, and I know she'll wear it for the show. And
sure, just tease me like that, but okay.
It's like promises, Nick.
I know, promises. You'll just might have to have an In Time fashion show. I think that's what you're trying to tell me.
The thing about life is that our sun is roughly 4 billion years old, but the galaxy is like 13 billion years old. So our sun is a relative newcomer compared to the age of the galaxy. So it would seem it would seem very possible that there could be life somewhere in our galaxy, that it would be significantly more advanced than we are. But again, we don't have any concrete evidence of that right now. But
I just want to address something that Titan said in the live chat, and I just want to. It has not escaped my my notice that Titan has actually never said that I'm sexy, and if he did, I probably would pay him. But he's never thought to say that, so I'm okay. I'm not taking it personally or nothing, it's just something that a guy notices these things. I've known him for like a couple of years, and he's just never, it's just like, it's all I can do is point out my faults. That's all he can do.
He's good at it.
There was a wise philosopher that once said, "I'm sexy and I know it," and I really do think we should all try to reflect from that.
Sexo ergo sum. That was that was.
He's too sexy for his
sexito.
$400
ergo
jacket.
Sum. Yeah. Well, now I have to wear this, right? Because you get offended if I don't put this on. You're like, we're not deserving of the. Yeah, okay, fine.
It is basically a sponsor of our channel, Nick. Okay, it was that or the Philly Fanatic. We went with the cheaper option.
It's fair. It's fair. Well, I do want to point out one thing though too. Is we basically
more expensive.
Yeah. No, finish. I'll say
that we basically now reproduced every individual step that we would need to complete embryogenesis in a lab. So we've completed all of the steps. There's I think in terms of like major steps, there's like 7 hurdles that we have to overcome, and the last one we did, I think 2 years ago, we successfully completed. So have we put them all together and gotten from A to Z? Nope, but we know how. So now it's just a question of building a experiment that can do it, and that accounts for all the variability and everything else we got to do, and then running that experiment. Who knows how long that's going to take? My guess is at least a couple of years, but I assume it's already started somewhere. But at any rate, I mean, the reality is, we're doing with this the same thing we always do, because one of the things about science, which is annoying, but that's why it works that way, which is you have to break everything down into these smaller components. And so, we can't just sit there and say, oh, we're going to run one test, and all of a sudden we've got it. No, we do steps, and then we add the steps, and we add that, and we add that. It was like landing on the moon, right? I mean, it's like we didn't just sit there and build the thing, we had to build the components to build the components to build the components to do that.
Nick,
you just brought up my daily double of the night. I was just talking about this with James before the show began, but there is an episode upcoming that we are going to now do on the moon landing, because I was just on kind of a Dawa-ish channel, and I was going back and forth with basically that you just believe that the moon landing happened based on testimony, just like I believe based on my testimony, my holy book. Therefore, ergo, we're really on equal footing, and we're just really, you just have yours and I'm mine.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, okay. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Were you there, Amy? Were you on the moon?
Were you there? You were. I guess not. Just like, were you there when life happened? You didn't see life happen.
This is why people need to understand what peer review is and why it's important and how it actually works, because that's one of the things that really prevents that kind of argument from being successful. Is it possible that the moon landing was faked? Yeah, absolutely. Is it likely? Well, you take a look at so many things that would have had to have happened for that to happen, and then you also take a look at, you have to. It's not just confirmation bias. You have to sit there and say, if it was, what are we missing that we would have expected if it had been faked? For example, Russia had every incentive at the time to say it was faked, and they never said that. They never came out and said the U.S. faked this. Now, we were in a moon race with them. We were attempting to see who could get there first. They, oh my God, the pride over Sputnik, right? And they're like, oh, we're kicking the Americans' ass, and then all of a sudden we're ahead in this space race. Now you can now sit there. Yeah, they'd have known it was fake. And the reality is, too, Japan now has a satellite out there that's capable of actually seeing the spot where the moon landing was and the American flag was put up there. Now, they're allies. Would they necessarily call us out? I think they still probably would and say, we took a look at the site and, we don't see any footprints there. What's going on? So, I mean, it's entirely possible, but that's why you don't have to disprove these. Yeah, there's a burden of proof thing, and it's just sort of like the evidence is, there is a point at which you have to say, because you can just do a reducto and keep thinking forever on this shit, right? And it's just like you can just go on forever and you're stuck Munchausen trial.
Beyond a reasonable doubt, there's no reasonable way that it's not true.
It's being unreasonable. Yeah. So, but it's
so
not
many crazy things would have to happen that it would just be so bizarre if.
And look, we've all seen the really, really bizarre things, but the reason they're really, really bizarre is because it almost never fucking happens. So what are the chances that this is one of those really, really bizarre things? This is one of those
rare, right?
Yeah, it's the exception proves the rule. The likelihood is so overwhelming that it happened. And I'd love to be overwhelmed by the Bible. I want to be overwhelmed. I want someone to tell me why it's true and show me, but they've got nothing that I can see. So, like, if I basically am I'm on Team God, right? I would love there to be one. I'd love you and convince me, and I can't. I'm not going to suspend. Every time I suspend my reason for something that I'd like to be true, I either hurt myself or I hurt other people. Usually, I do both. So, and I can still hurt people going by truth, but it tends to happen less. I tend to have better control of the outcomes, and we get more positive outcomes. So, give me that evidence, and we're good to go. But I'm not going to allow what I want to influence my judgment or my critical thinking there. And I think that's one of the few things that you can start with as in terms of ethics, right? It's like if you're not going to look at things honestly, what's the point? So,
yep. Just want to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible.
Yeah.
Self-delusion. It's real. I think a lot of people embrace it, though. I think there's a lot of people out there that really don't want to know the truth.
But we have to, right? I mean, so here's the thing that people talk about defense mechanisms, and they say defense mechanisms really suck. No, we need them. We don't have them because we don't need them. And it's the same thing. My daughter, I remember when I was trying to explain to her, she's like, I said, if you get really, really sick, because she was asking about people who had these really high temperatures, and I had to put them like in a bath and get them cold. I was like, well, because you're getting so hot, you can start to basically kill your brain. She's like, well, you told me that it's your body that's doing that. So why is your body doing that to itself? And I was just like, well, because basically you've reached a point where either you survive or the thing does, and it just keeps going up and up and up.
There's competing things that the body's trying to do two things at once, and
trying to maintain
homeostasis. It's like anaphylactic shock. There's an immune response to a potential threat, but then that ends up causing swelling that could kill you also.
Yep. Yeah. So we have mechanisms for trying to deal with what happens when things start overwhelming us, and then those mechanisms eventually fail. But we do have those mechanisms, and they extend our ability to operate outside our normal range. One of them is denial. You couldn't go to war if you didn't have the ability to be in denial about what the real is. I mean, it's like everybody in a foxhole is in denial on some level. And some of the real harsh realities that would shut most people down don't, because we have this defense mechanism called denial, which we need, that allows us to operate when normally we would be overwhelmed by the amount of information, usually negative information, hitting us. We have to have denial. It's great. It lets us do so much more, but it's a defense mechanism. And that's why they call it one. And it really works. And we are more productive and more able to deal with a complex universe that's trying to kill us and much smarter than we are. And we do that in part with denial. So it's great stuff, but it gets out of control so easily. And because it's cathartic, and because it really does make the universe more manageable, which is what it's supposed to do, we do the same thing with it that we can do with any useful tool, like James, that gets kind of out of control. Oh, come on. That was fucking funny. Okay, never mind. That's it. I'm not coming back to the show. I am not coming back to the show. You know what? That's that. No, that's it. You guys just don't. I'm not even listening anymore. I get it.
I
My pleasure. What?
In my
Maybe
head,
Okay.
I was trying to think about. I had a very sad point, which was death. So I'm sitting here like, okay, we're gonna.
She was thinking
death,
about Darth
I
Dawkins and
no,
spandex.
I wanted to agree with you because I think that one of the major reasons that keeps people in religion is the denial that they are going to die, that they are going to cease existing. And I feel like that is
It's such a lure.
one of the greatest comforts that people gravitate towards because they got to go functioning, like you were saying. You know what? Don't focus about the fact that I'm going to stop existing because I need to wake up and do my job and get a sandwich and get the kids off to, school and all this.
But hey, this book I have says I don't have to die. I get to live forever. Hey, I don't know.
Well, and
sounds
that's
like
it, right?
a good deal to me.
It gives you a good justification for that denial, and that's why. And the reason I try to get into this nuance is because people talk about also, denial is so terrible, and denial is, and I don't allow myself the luxury. Well, you better, because you're not going to function if you don't. It really is important, and so many of our
at some level.
Yeah. So
it
that
can
also
be
helps people to
overused.
connect. Oh yeah.
You know what,
It
Nick,
is often, right?
that.
It's like alcohol, right? A little bit of alcohol at a nice party, you loosen up, you're having a good time, but it can get out of control a little quick. And Amy, we both know about. Okay, sorry. I said I would not mention that one. So sorry about that.
You're on a roll tonight. Look at you.
I am.
You're like, ladies and gentlemen, tip your waitress. We got to keep on saying.
Yeah, well, I'm showing off for James. I think I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna
Hey, go all out.
110%.
And I will say, I'm gonna get your final word in here in a second. But while we still have you on, we're gonna send this out into the interwebs because theists, are you really going to let the non-believers, the skeptics, the people who support science cough? You really just gonna let those people control the stream? Come on, come one, come all. Just please, not on my sheets. We'll let you say whatever you want. But yes, Nick, we are calling me skeptical. We have been talking about the origin of life. I would say that creationists really, it's like their gateway drug to evolution. They really want to talk about evolution, but it's just too factual. It's just too proven, too empirical based. So they really got to go over the second daily double word of the day, which is abiogenesis. And, that's like their sticking point. Even though it appears to me, anyway, that all of the evidence actually leads towards a natural means. I think they're barking up the wrong bush because eventually it will be just as empirically backed as evolution, or to the point where they will be just fairly silly, more silly than they are now.
Well, like I like to say that and the dynamic is, to me, exactly the same as the flat earther dynamic between the people who deny evolution. You can show them like as much evidence, and they're not really even considering it. They're just trying to hand wave it away. It's not the amount of evidence or that the evidence makes sense. It's really it's a them problem. Like they're just not willing to accept it because they have a need to believe in this delusion, this fantasy of a flat Earth.
Well, I think the abiogenesis, the great thing about that too, that Amy brought up, I think it's really worth noting. People who want to take down evolution, they usually go to that, right? They say, well, it doesn't explain how life started, and you're sitting there going, like, well, it doesn't try to. That's not the point of the theory. It doesn't have to in order to be true or false, or no theory encompasses everything.
It doesn't tell you how to make toast either.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. So it's sort of like, well, the thing is, if you really believe, first of all, Piaget said all salient learning is painful. So it hurts because you have to move from a position you currently believe and hold You have to admit you were wrong on some level. You have to admit that you're fallible. It's just every time you learn something new, there's more fallibility, right? So even though we can sit there and intellectually say, well, I'm smarter, yeah, but it still hurts. If it's salient, it's going to hurt. So all salient learning is painful. And if you're in this position where you have to give up, first of all, your own sort of infallibility and that you really had some cray-cray beliefs, and also give up the immortality and give up all these other things, you believe it or not, there's not a lot of incentive to take a good, serious, hard look at science. And so they don't actually understand what these theories are saying, and they have no interest in and it's more than just assuming that they're false going in, or assuming that's part of it too. There's so much more to it.
That is part of it.
And then once they get there, they're just sort of sitting there going like, well, that can't possibly make sense. If it doesn't explain it, that's not a good theory. And it's just like, you do realize the theory of gravity doesn't explain how an atomic bomb works. It doesn't try to explain it. It doesn't need to. It doesn't need to explain a whole bunch of things, even things that are very closely related to gravity, because it's not the theory of everything, right? It's the theory of gravity. And it doesn't explain how planets got there in the first place. All planets have gravity. But it doesn't sit there and say, well, mass started this way or this way. It doesn't care. It doesn't need to know. We know mass is here. So
it doesn't even explain why gravity is.
Yes.
It just explains how nobody has a clue why mass attracts other mass. We know that it does, and we can measure it, and we see, but nobody knows why that is.
And that makes a lot of sense if you're coming at it even with just the sort of the base minimum charity. You don't have to be going out of your way to really be charitable to say, okay, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Every theory has its bounds. There are very specific, well-defined bounds for evolution, and it doesn't include abiogenesis, and for very specific reasons, and they're good reasons. And so it's like, okay, if you can take that off the table, but they're like, it doesn't make sense to me, and here's a great way to straw man it. What's the real incentive to just sort of understand the basics of how and why? That's really not an issue. And, there are plenty of issues. There are plenty of places, if you want to get into fine tuning, if you want to get into all these arguments that have at least the ability to have some weight and some, you can sit and think about them and argue with them. That's it. But to sit there and say that because, abiogenesis isn't a part of evolution must be wrong. It's like, we're not even speaking the same language at that point, and it's sort of like, you're not really interested in this discussion. Sorry, what?
It's just a theory.
It's just a theory. I know. That's so what I always say to that is, well, here's what you can do. Jump off the Empire State Building, hang there for a few minutes, and explain to me that gravity is just a theory. Go next time you're getting surgery. Tell your doctor he doesn't need to scrub up. Don't bother, cleaning the wound or anything like that, because germ theory is just a theory. Go to Japan. This is admittedly a little out there, but it's just like talk to Hiroshima and Nagasaki and say, guess what? Atomic theory is just a theory. There are a lot of theories that we have, and I don't think just a theory is not a particularly credible defense to. It's just like, give me a break. Could you? Guess what? Science uses words a little different, and so does religion, by the way. So you guys know what that's like. Stop clowning around. Understand that he meant something different with it, and we scientists always have it. But to them, it feels like a post hoc rationalization, right? Oh, we're losing the argument. So we didn't mean by theory, we didn't mean guess. It's like, yeah, by faith, you didn't mean blind faith either. Tell you what, you define faith any way you like. We'll use it that way. You understand that theory has meant the same thing for at least 400 years, and it ain't what you think it is.
That's their PR term. They've created blind faith because they don't want faith to look silly. So they're like, oh, it's not. I know we have faith, but it's not blind faith.
Oh, give it to them. Give it to them. I love that. No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's absolutely not. Give it to them. Give it to them. So what I do is I always say, look, I define, people sit there and they say, how do you think of an atheist? And I'll use whatever terms I'm going to use for the debate. Half the time they'll say, oh, that's really agnostic. I was like, okay, fine, I'm agnostic. Let's move on. Like, no, let's argue the terms. No, you can call me what you like. The label is just so that we understand each other. If you have a different name for it, you do you. I don't care what you define faith as. What I care about is we define it once at the beginning, and that's the definition we use throughout the entire time. So if it doesn't mean blind faith, if it means trust in this, that, great. That's what it means. We've agreed. Don't try to use it the other way. And then when they try to use it the other way, they're like, well, I'm using a different definition. No, we already defined it. So now you're going to have to come up with a different term because you're actually using a different word. And there was actually something else. Oh, design, because you had mentioned, Amy, earlier about a designer, right? And we know that the watch was created by somebody because, we can take a look at it. So the watch wasn't created by anybody. Nobody created the watch. It was designed and constructed. But the man who did this, didn't just say, ooh, and on the seventh day there was the metal that I needed to make no, they took the metal out of the ground and, put all this thing together from materials that already existed. So when you say that somebody created the watch, you can call it a category error, you can call it equivocation. Equivocation is really more closer to what it is, but it's different than somebody created the universe, because the idea that somebody created the universe is there was nothing there, poof, now there is. That watch, every component of that watch has existed for millions of years.
In fact,
nobody just sat there and created
just
it.
add on to that, what they don't seem, in my opinion, to understand is that we seem to create tools, and they are using a creator that creates natural phenomena. And we don't have any actual examples of an intelligence forming or being the basis of a natural phenomena. Like it is not boiling at a certain temperature because of an intelligent agent. It is just a natural phenomena that we record. But something to protect ourselves while you are out, while it is at a freezing point in temperature, is something that comes from a mind. And I don't feel like they grasp that concept.
I think that's a really good point too. It's essentially, I think, a category error and trying to compare. You're comparing apples and a 2-ton truck, and like I said, I think the best way in any debate, I always am happy to use any word for faith that they want to use, and any definition for faith. I don't care what the definition is. I don't think anybody should care. What they should care about is, once it's established that that's the definition you're going to use, and you will not permit equivocation going forward. And then I can say, listen, why don't you use a new word going forward? Well, I can't, because this is really the kind of faith I was talking about from the beginning. Well, no, wait. At the beginning, we defined it just so you couldn't do this. So this is the first time that now you've got this new concept, blind faith or whatever. We'll call it something different going forward. It's a different thing. And they're like, well, no, it's really the same thing. I was like, so wait, well, then why did we define this in the beginning? Why didn't you tell me at the beginning? Is it possible because there's, 3-card Monte going on here? What faith is? Oh, no, it's just an oversight. I was like, well, that's why I spent a lot of time on this. So, I'm not going to go back.
Keep your eye over here, and we're just going to go over here. And
take someone like Ken Hovind, like he uses the word faith like anything that you believe to be true that you don't claim to have 100% complete factual knowledge of. He'll say, oh, you believe that on faith, and no. There are very few things that we claim with absolute certainty, and the fact is we don't have to claim absolute certainty to claim that we know something. Some things we're so sure on, there's no reasonable or rational way they could be wrong, but we would probably not say that it's absolute knowledge.
Well, a debate is an intellectual exercise. On some level, it's an intellectual exercise. You're already admitting when you have a debate that there's going to be certain rules, that there's going to be a certain procedure, whatever it is, and that the goal is towards some end of improving understanding. Well, if it's an intellectual exercise, then you have to realize it's very hard to get anybody who's intellectual and who's studied these things to say that there's anything that they'd say for 100% certain you can't. I mean, now you're getting into brute fact. So it's sort of like it's a false it's a false dichotomy there that he's sitting there going, so everything's either faith or 100%, and it's like no
degrees of certainty.
Yeah, faith is anything in my view. Usually for me is faith is and I forget there was a great definition of it that I really liked. But even if you have any evidence at all, usually it's not a faith-based position per se. It's a position that has some evidence, but you don't have a conclusion. The faith part is where you go past that, where there is no evidence for a claim. So you say, well, I've got evidence of X, Y, and Z, but I have faith that it's going to turn out this way. Okay, so you're acknowledging where there's evidence, and then what the remainder is the faith. The faith is not the entire proposition just because the evidence hasn't reached 100%. That's no. Sorry. No.
You would only ever use faith as a justification you had literally nothing else to present. Because if you had any actual, you would present the evidence. You'd only use faith if you had literally nothing else to present.
And that's fine. But and you know what? Faith is great, and I'm glad when people have faith. But the first question I tend to ask people who say, "Well, you know, it's my faith, and I know it's right." I was like, "Okay, take a terrorist, 9/11. Do you have more faith or less faith than the guy who was behind the wheel in one of those airplanes? Because I think they had a lot of faith." And you can sit there and say they're wrong and you're right, but you're going to need something other than faith as
right
the justification for why you're right. Because I don't think you had more faith than them. I'll say you had as much as them. I'm not sure that's true, but let's say for now that yeah.
They thought they were going to wake up after that plane crash and be in paradise with their virgins, and they were just going to be as happy as can be.
Yeah, so if you're gonna rely on faith, there's the problem, right? Is there's no way to distinguish how you know you're right and they're wrong because your faith does not exceed theirs. I guarantee that. And if you're just gonna sit there and say, well, you know, I'm still gonna have just that faith anyway. Well, okay, but then there's no point in really discussing it. You know, it's you've made up your mind. That's the position, and congratulations. That is unfortunately, and you have to be very careful with this because you don't want to sit there and say that they could do something that terrible. But it does get into divine command theory. The biggest problem with divine command theory is, you know, you have to then say, how do you know that the commands that you're getting from, you know, that God is you have no, if the divine command theory is faith based, then the problem is how there's no way to say that the God who gives commands to terrorists to fly airplanes into buildings is any more or less just than the God who says you should go around curing sick people. There's no, you cannot, that's just a tenet of faith. There's no way to rationally argue one or the other. So, and yeah, you guys know, I mean, I tend to think if there was a God, divine command theory would have to be true. But the people who claim it, you've got the same reductile problem that you have with every other religious claim, which is, you know, the problem is it only works if there really is a God and if you've got the right one. And every divine command theorist, divine command theory for their God. Yes, I agree with divine command theory, but demonstrate that there is a God and that you've picked the right one. You got to overcome both of those hurdles before you can use divine command theory, which I think would have to be correct. But before you can use it, you have to justify both those things. So once you've justified both of those, go ahead, use divine command theory, knock yourself out, knock a partner out, knock a minority out, whatever it is that your God is telling you to do. But you have to justify those too, and you can't, you know, yeah.
I think it also touches on the idea that we get from theists a lot, particularly Christians, when they're coming and saying that, like, would you die for a lie? Like they look at the early Christians who were persecuted and they take their faith that hey, they were willing to die for it, so it must have been true. Which you know, people die for silly things all the time. That's not proof that
indeed
it's
well, and it's 9/11 again, right? Okay,
right.
Sure. I'm sure, you know, facing the Lions, they had, you know, the strength of belief, the fact that they had it. So assuming that the Bible isn't lying, you know, and you know, we nobody here. I mean, you guys have been covering the Bible. I'm sure all of it is completely true. We're all experts, and by this point, and so, yeah, but you know, let's grant that all of it's true. Let's grant that everything that we've heard afterwards is true, and that all of these people really did believe, which is kind of odd, actually, because even back then, resurrection was kind of a deal, and it's like nobody else really wrote about it.
It's kind of like a big deal.
Yeah, I know. It's just sort of like, you know, I mean, I know there was Nebuchadnezzar and a few others, but it still wasn't like a common thing. So you'd think he'd have had more followers than he did by the end, especially if he really resurrected. But okay, we'll drop all that. You still got the problem
actually
of
touring Vegas. He had like what do they call it when you have you're just
you're
a permanent resident there. Yeah, no.
He was in the Midwest. If I recall, he went and visited the natives. He hung with them. Yeah, Amy, you need to, you know, I don't even know
Thank you,
how.
Joseph Smith. I'm so sorry. I can't believe I forgot.
Yeah, I can't wait till you guys get into that. I know it's a ways away because the Bible's a big book, but I will hang through for that. I
Turns
am
out
really looking forward.
it is bigger than we thought. Also, that is what he or she said.
Oh, for fuck's
No.
sake! And I totally set that one up too. And I was sitting there going like, Nick, I think you're going to regret. And there it is.
Yes. And before we let you have an amazing night, and thank you for coming on tonight, Nick, we are going to send just a few comments we had because Titan was he was trying to wag us down. And hey, always keep on sending in your comments to be read or shown on screen by tagging us at James W. and myself at Amy Newman. He says, I believe, Nick, you'll find atheism has been thoroughly defined.
Okay, no, whoa.
I have a Venn diagram.
Oh, okay. No, he's hitting below the belt in so many ways at this point. Yeah, he's okay. I kind of am sitting there going like, no, I'm going to sit there. I was like, I don't care what he says. I'm just going to be like, no, because I don't want to prove him right. I don't like prove. Titan. Yeah, he and I are going to have a little chat after this one. Like, thanks, Titan. Yeah, okay, no, okay. I don't mind being triggered about that one because he's
debate me raw on that.
You guys need to review your modding policies. I think you may have a troll or two
trolling is
with
getting,
wrenches around here.
Oh my!
Getting pretty high level, huh?
Listen, come to in time. We don't put up with any of that stuff. No, as soon as we get a troll at that level, we make them head mod.
But we're sending love to Titan. We're sending love, and of course, I think this has to be the comment to transition to an outro of sorts. I mean, he's just sending you more love, Nick. That's all Pat is doing. He says that his dog, she just loves listening to you talk.
She's certified in BS detection. Oh, Pat, I'm wounded. I'm wounded, brother. I'm totally wounded. Listen. Well, no, listen. I would love to. I listen. No, I think he kids. I think he just. I think once he gets a show that people actually decide that they want to watch, he's going to be a lot easier to get along with. And yeah, I'm sure it'll happen, Pat. And I'm sure that there are people who find you interesting and entertaining and would love to listen to. I don't know where they are, but YouTube's big. You'll find someone somewhere. So just keep at it. And thank you for your comments. And I look forward to seeing a show that maybe has you on it. So thank you so much.
He needs to find a partner that they should get together and do something about that on a channel. But we are sending love to Titan. We are sending love to Pat. And of course, we are sending love. Nick, I have to ask you just one more time because we have been calling me skeptical. We've been asking, the origin of life. We're asking those, I would say, derp questions, the deep questions. Is the origin of life natural or supernatural?
The evidence strongly, and I mean really strongly suggests natural, despite the fact that we don't know where or how yet. We don't have to realize that every time we've had that question, it's always been natural. We already understand theoretical models for how it could have happened. We've demonstrated every step of the way. I don't think it's wouldn't it be great if it was supernatural? Wouldn't it be great if we were something more than just these apes that evolved into what it is that we can do now? That would be awesome. But I don't see that, and I think the evidence is so overwhelming that it is natural, despite the fact that we don't have all the answers. I say this too, right? Okay, so when did Jesus die? Well, we don't know exactly when he died. Well, there's a gap in your knowledge? You don't know when Jesus died, so the Bible must be false. Well, the Bible doesn't have everything. Okay, well, we don't know all the steps to abiogenesis yet. Doesn't mean it's wrong. We know the theory, and we're learning more. So until you can tell me the exact date and time Jesus was born and died, don't sit there and tell me about theories that don't have all the answers.
We've really only been looking for an answer for maybe 100 years, roughly. I mean, it's not like we've been doing this for thousands of years and not finding an answer. We've already found out a lot. We've already came a long way down that path. Like you say, we can get the steps down. We just have to put them all together.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, somebody told me once, and I'm not sure if it's true, but I've heard that Jesus is kind of an important figure in the Bible.
Kind of like a big
And if he's
deal.
important, you'd think like when he was born and when he died and all this, but no, it's not in there. And that doesn't seem to concern them. But when a theory in science doesn't answer absolutely everything, it's obviously false. And it's like, you know what? Bit of a double standard, just saying.
Hells yeah. Or
Yeah.
as the cool kids are saying, ramen. I think, definitely. Thank you so very much, Nick. And go check out In Time, On Time, the lovely, as always, Nick. Thank you so very much for coming on.
Thank you guys so much for having me on. And
Thanks, Nick.
thank you for having me on and letting me make fun of everybody. So thanks. It was great. And I'll see you guys later.
Oh, the pleasure's all on this side, buddy.
And woohoo!
Dun, dun, dun.
Woohoo! That's right. That was a fantastic call. And in fact, we are calling me skeptical on the origin of life, supernatural or natural. Want to send so much love back to Nick, and as well, all of you guys out there watching in the interwebs. I do have to just send it out as often as I can. We got to keep on sending that net out.
Sending love and the net.
We are looking, that's right, sending love and the net. We're looking for more people who disagree with our own. I will say, just lovely thieves out there, I believe. Don Willis sends in love. The Freak sends in love.
Hey, guys.
Patty P, what is up? Sending love to all of you out there. Yeah. Feel free to join. I know it's always like the high pressure. They're like, you're in chat, so you have to join. No, I mean, if you're enjoying, you're vibing, you can't even get there, no worries. We're sending love. But if you would like to defend your claim, if you think you can defend your beliefs that the origin of life is supernatural, then we'd appreciate you coming on and telling us why. What's up, Patty P?
Hey, Patty.
Woo-hoo. What is up, Shane the Skeptic? Yo, we need to just send double love to Shane, who just got his 1K sub monetization. We need to send him an awesome, fantastic congratulations. And then why, if you're already not a member of Shane the Skeptic, why haven't you gone out there? He is a member of Tangang, yo, just like Biddy Buddha. You should be connecting with all these lovely non-believers out there. So much fantastic content.
Amy connects with non-believers.
Oh, baby, if you're into that kind of thing. So, but we're sending love. In fact, what we're going to do is I think we'll read some more comments. We'll talk more about the subject. But then if we can't get any more calls, we will eventually do our own little outros and then head towards the after show in the Discord. But we are calling me skeptical on the origin of life, natural or supernatural. We're having fun. I will say that we're going to try and be doing these call-in shows possibly even earlier. And so that will also give us bumps to hopefully get some disagreeable views, which we like the spice. Just like in Dune, ladies and gentlemen. He who controls the spice. I mean, it seems to be a good opinion. There's just a lot of good atheists named Shane out there. Yeah. If that's true, yo, Biddy and I are starting a show called Atheist City, then I just got to do a pre-shout out right there. Could you pray for Christians? Hey, I just would like to send love to Christians. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian, a Muslim, a Jew. I love
Born
you.
again Muslim even.
I'm born again. I just disagree. It's the Talk Heathen used to have a fantastic saying, which is, "We don't hate you, we just think you're wrong." But we're sending love out into the internet sphere. We're sending hearts. Ask and we call. We are getting theists. What is up, House of Comments? We are sending love to anyone who disagrees, but we just think it seems natural. In fact, all of the evidence, all of the current evidence seems to point in the direction of life arising by natural means.
Always works out that way, huh? The evidence always seems to point towards a naturalistic explanation. Go figure. Go figure.
And for those asking who that just was that was on here, because we really do want to connect as many non-believers as we can, you can find that lovely gentleman in his fantastic $400 suit and he yoga pants down below that glitter that you just couldn't see, which is a trendsetter. He was always a trendsetter. So
he hangs out with Darth Dawkins a lot, right?
Well, there you go. I saw a picture in that pre-advertisement for that debate with Darth Dawkins of a picture of him, and that had to have been I mean, I was going to say that had to have been an approved picture, right? But that was the gentleman.
I don't think it's that. I don't think Praise would really put out a real picture of Darth or whatever.
It always just amazes me that those type of people don't want to be seen online. You would think that someone with an ego like his would want to be blasting his name and his views out there.
Put his face on T-shirts.
Put it on milk, baby. That's right. Put it on everything.
Wouldn't you want to have Darth Dawkins' face on your underwear? I mean,
oh, I so would. And hey,
even maybe on your toilet paper, even.
And
hey.
I understand you're saying you can't make us believe, and I get that some people think that we are just closed-minded, that we're not just going to change our mind no matter what people say. I like to think differently. I think that James and myself, if presented with the right evidence, we would actually change our mind. Maybe not in that conversation or that moment, but...
Well, I know I've changed my mind on things in the past. I'm sure most people have, when presented with enough evidence. We both used to be theists, so it's not like we don't understand the theistic mindset. Just not convinced it's real.
Just no longer think that it's true. Now, I mean, I imagine there are theists out there, because it really isn't a true dichotomy, that believe that, it arose by natural and supernatural means. I just think that supernatural is a poorly, loosely, ill-defined term, and so it is not useful. Oh, we got Bubble. Oh, I will say that we have at least 4 theists in chat. I'm sending love. Bubblegum Gum says, first off, that's not evidence. Second, that's really kind of impossible. But sending love to Bubblegum Gun out there, and to all the theists. We're just looking for any of you to join. Any. You don't have to, but we would appreciate if you do believe. We do love the debate community. I wouldn't call it the great debate community. Throwing a little shade out there. Because I don't split atheist, agnostics, and everyone apart. There are good reasons for why I'm an agnostic and why I'm an atheist. And why I think those two labels can equally be defended in their own right.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But it doesn't matter. I think that's what Nick was saying.
No reason to schism about it.
What is up, Randolph? Send in love. But it
That's the
doesn't
Christian's
matter.
job, the schism.
Because,
That's not our job.
Once you're over the deistic line, you're a non-believer. You could call it whatever you want. I think sometimes it's a little easier when you're in theistic circles for some people to accept us as agnostic. It feels more comfortable to them for some, but I think that's a cultural thing. I think, speaking of Randolph, and is it either Pasta Mike? I think the normalizing
Pasta Mike,
atheism campaign is just another thing that we need to get behind, because there's a lot of stigma behind the A label. Shane's like, I can pretend to be a theist and join, but that's not fun. No. Oz used to come on here and troll the crap out of, we'll say, atheists that were being less than skeptical, which was always amusing. And it happens. There are non-believers that are not skeptical. It is
somebody
not
trolled. Remember when they trolled
fun,
Shane with the Darth Dawkins soundboard on our channel?
Look,
Shane thought Darth was on here.
I will say that here's the problem, though. I got to give, in defense of that, is there really that much difference between Darth Dawkins and a Darth Dawkins soundboard? I mean,
No,
really, you get the same output.
Listen, Amy, you know as well as anybody else, you can't beat the script.
Can't beat that
Darth
script.
has that. Darth has that script, and that's his battle tank. He's not going to give it up.
But see, that's the difference. So Ken Hovind is a piece of not good stuff, and yet he's at least telling us, I think, what he believes. You can't say that with the pre-suppers and the people that aren't going to actually defend their theistic claims. Oh, Pat's sending in love. He says, I just need to dox Shane Bilowitz. He is a closet theist. He denies evolution and believes in the blood of the lamb.
That he does. Pat.
Look, it's what I love about religion is they would never make like a sacrificial lambs. Wait.
Where's Sherry Lewis when we need her?
I just don't get the concept of a scapegoat. Like, I don't understand how that works, and it's not magic. We're going to kill this thing so that we get this over here. I feel like that is not a valid way of scientific knowledge.
Doesn't seem to make much sense, does it?
Really doesn't.
People started fucking up. Okay, guys, well, you know what? Kill some animals, burn their carcasses, and then that will allow me to forgive you. And then you can continue with the praising and the loving and the worshiping, and I won't have to kill you.
Yeah, he won't have to. Don't make me torture you forever. Tease. Just a very weird thing for a
Don't
God
threaten
to
God
do.
with a good time.
I know, exactly. But what do we know, James? We can't understand the 4D chess. It only looks stupid and evil. But, what do we know?
Yeah, exactly. What do we know? I mean, we're not the ones who went Terminator on a fig tree. So, I mean, understanding that 5D chess is, yeah.
Exactly. We're just playing checkers. What's up, Master QT1? That's right. Shift the blame to some animals. Then you don't have to claim the responsibility to anything. Just slit that chicken's throat, and we're going to get rain. It's going to be great.
That is one of my favorite stories from the New Testament. Jesus, when he killed the fig tree for the crime of not bearing fruit out of season. But you know what? If Jesus could copy and paste fish, if he could do that, couldn't you just make the tree sprout fruit out of season? Couldn't you just zap it
You would think.
and it would be fruit because he was hungry? I don't know.
The miracles are all a little strange. The funny thing is there is no connection between coming back from the dead and being a god. Like, there could come a time when we are able to resurrect people from the dead. We will not be gods at that point. We will just have become really good at medical technology. It is not a miracle.
I mean, then that would call into question the definition of death. Like, what is death really? You know?
Well, sure. And it would also depend on how far back we're able to resurrect. I
Right.
mean, are you able to bring back people back from the dead a minute after resurrection, an hour, 3 days, a year? I feel like those are different time
You
scales.
resurrect
3
Elvis.
days is a lot. That's what I really don't think that they appreciate, how much your body rots, how much decomposition happens in 3 days. Like, either God undid the decomposition, or he was zombie Jesus. And we're not joking. It literally was a guy with rotten flesh moving around.
Well, I would tend to think that he did not undo anything because remember, Amy, according to the story, when they doubt that it's him and he holds up his hand and he's like, "Go ahead, stick something through the hole in my hand so that you will know
Right.
that." And what did he stick through the hole, Amy?
Oh, I think that's a different website, James.
Oh,
But it was a good time either way. Patty P says, God raised him from the dead as the first fruit of all creation. We will never raise people from the dead beyond what we know already pretty much now in terms of extending life. That's different. But my question is, why is raising someone from the dead? Where's the connection to that being a god? Is it just because it was so amazing? Because I feel like there will come a day when we can resurrect people, at least within their flesh not having decayed to a certain amount. But even then, it wouldn't be a god.
but the whole theology of it really, like, so if Jesus was the sacrifice, wouldn't he have to stay dead? Because if he paid the penalty for our sins, but he only had to die for 3 days. I mean,
and I ask people, if you had a time machine, or I ask Christians, if you had a time machine, would you take Jesus off the cross? And most I have found say, no, that dude needs to stay up there. I had an affair with my wife. I need Jesus to stay up there so that I could get into heaven. And he like forgives me and stuff. Don't really need my wife to forgive me, but I definitely need Jesus to forgive me.
yeah, it's well, I mean, according to I guess Jesus could have saved himself. He could have had himself pulled off the cross. He wouldn't have had to die, but I mean, it's not like he didn't know he was going to be back from the dead anyway, so it wasn't really. He knew it wasn't the end. So,
Exactly.
like Matt
he knew the
Delhoney
plan.
said, it was a really shitty weekend, but now after that, he gets to be God forever. So,
Good trade-off.
I mean,
Fairly good deal.
if you think about it, yeah.
Hey, like I said, we are just looking for theists. And I bring up comments because we like the spice and to have something to talk about when someone's not on the show, especially from the opposing viewpoints. But I always feel bad because I always feel like when it's comments versus the microphone, it's always comedy rules, is that the person with the microphone is always going to win. That's why hecklers are so dumb. A heckler is never going going to win. Not that you guys, in fact, all of our theist brothers and
Feel
sisters,
free to heckle.
you are fantastic. We love
Heckle
send
away.
in all your comments, and as long as you don't break the TOS, our lovely mods are standing by for you to have a good time. So theists, atheists, doesn't matter who you are, we want you on this show. But we give priority to theists or people who just disagree about us with whatever topic we have.
Jesus was born to die, he says. But I mean, if you think about it, wasn't everybody born to die? Because you can
Yes.
be pretty sure that everybody who is born will also die at some point. So
Really,
that's,
the one guarantee we have in life.
basically, yeah.
Death and
Most
taxes.
Christians are trying
Unless you're Ken Hovind.
to avoid that by pretending that death really doesn't apply to them. It's not really real. It's not really forever. They're not really dead. They're just living somewhere else. That's really the whole point of it.
They're dead, but they're not like dead.
So
And all right, the bait worked.
shoot me.
And I will say, if I am being honest, I view myself as a master debater. I can't help myself.
Bro.
I debate in the morning. I debate in the evening. And you know, sometimes if I'm lucky enough, I even get to debate in the shower.
What about when you're on the toilet? You
Maybe.
debate there too.
Generally have to concentrate, but yes, no matter where. But we're sending love. We got Ralph. We got him backstage. We are calling me skeptical. And we are talking the origin of life. Natural or supernatural. We're bringing in our next caller. What is up, Ralph? I hope you are doing good.
Good morning, Amy, James. How are you?
We're
Good morning.
pretty good. In fact, we are calling me skeptical, where we are talking about the origins of life, natural or supernatural. What are your thoughts?
I haven't had my morning coffee, and I've had a bit of a bad night's sleep, and the baiting worked. I just couldn't take it anymore, Amy. I couldn't take it anymore.
Happens.
Origins of life. I don't know.
Listen, she's gonna put the dog. It won't be long before she's got the dog collar on you, Ralph.
Hey, wait.
Oh my.
The dog collars are for pooches, right? I don't know the origins of life. I guess when we last time I popped on, we said humans are really, really special, right? So I guess if we look at all the rest of the origins of life, do we mean the origins of life on the planet, or do you mean humans? I think humans are distinct from the rest of us, right? The rest of God's creatures.
I'd say
So I would
life
say,
on the planet.
we're special because we've got a soul, and that distinguishes us from the rest of God's creatures. And yeah, I can accept an evolutionary explanation for God having created life and then having given us a soul. So I think that would be my worldview. So all the other species, no souls for kitty cats and pooches, or no soul that we can relate to, and then souls for us. So
Woo!
does that rock your world?
No, well, I just have to say, I do have to say, what is up, Jay? I'm sending
Jay.
love to Jay. Woo-hoo. But so you saying that it did come about by, I was talking about earlier, where it almost seemed like there could be both a supernatural and natural, because it wasn't a true dichotomy. I think that it has to be natural, but you could add on. Are you saying that it is both of those then?
Yeah, I believe the universe was created by God, and then He's obviously created everything in it. And then I believe at a particular point, He decided to intervene, if you like, with us humans, and give us thanks, and give us a soul, give us a way to find him. So yeah, I mean, I believe I can take the natural explanation for the rest of the species as being true. But they were God created the universe, right? I don't believe the universe, because for me, life comes out of the universe, right? So you've got to, if you don't accept God created the universe, there's no point arguing about God created life, right? So I think God created the universe to create life, right? So I don't know where you want to start with that. Do you start with, did God create the universe and then create life, or was the universe made magically and then God created life? I think God created the universe and therefore life, and then created us with this special purpose, which is to find him, right? Now, my coffee just arrived, so I'm going to be a lot better in about 2 minutes from now when I shoot it up into my veins, right? So does that make sense, though? I mean, God created, so the universe, or you believe the universe...
I understand what I would say that position is. I'm just trying to suss out, what would you then say to someone who says, we will never know or have any evidence for a naturalistic means of...
But we won't, will we? Even if we take some latest theory in physics.
Also loves Pat and Shane.
Hey, sorry, no. Yeah, I don't know what the latest, the current latest view in physics is, but if the latest view in physics is we just came out of something else that was also natural, then you get into the infinite regress argument, isn't it? That thing came from something that was natural, that came from something that was natural. And it doesn't really answer the question, where did it all come from, right? So eventually go to some null state, right? At some point you say, hey, all of this came from what? So not like the Kalam argument, but almost like before the Kalam, right? It's like, what happened? Did this just arrive out of from where? Because if the universe is space and time, at least, then there's got to be something that transcends it to have made it, right? Unless it's infinite.
Don't know.
Yeah, the answer would be don't know, right? Yeah, of course, because we don't know. So therefore, if we've got the big don't knows at the beginning, not sure everything else holds, right? I mean, all you can do is say, hey, we're going to keep trying to find out. But the problem with the natural explanation is, what created the box that's the outer bounding box, if you like, of all of naturalism? If I say naturalism is everything, and right now let's say it's my latest quantum field theory, then what created that? And the answer is, I just don't know. I'm like, okay, well, that's a great answer. You don't know, okay. So I'm not sure how much that's a problem. Is that a problem? Is that a rival theory?
I would say the problem only comes once you fill in an answer when you don't know.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's true. So the question is more like, hey, we don't like your explanation. We don't have an alternative one, but we just don't like yours, right? Is that right? And then the bigger question, I think that's harder, and that's where many Christians or theists will split, is, did God create all of the living creatures, or did he just make us special? So I'm in the camp, firmly in the camp, he made us, he made all God's creatures are special, but he made us extra special.
Extra special. I
special.
find that, look, I do say I find that silly. I heart you, but we just so look plainly.
We were talking about that the other day.
Yeah, it just looks like we came from other animals. It is very hard for me to say why we're special, except for the fact that we are the tool makers, and that gave us.
But don't you feel special, Amy, when you if you go to
Can
the
I?
zoo?
And I was thinking about that. Can I tell you the funny thing? I feel like everyone feels special, and so it's a very normal, natural thing to feel special. It's something that everyone feels. And do you see the irony in that circle? Is that it's kind of like you need to feel that way so that you can keep on going about in your non-special life.
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think I quoted a famous book last time. No, there's nothing more common than the need to feel special, right? So everyone needs to feel special, but objectively, we are special, aren't we? There's been nothing like us. There's nothing even close to us, right? So closest homology is chimps.
Thank evolution for that.
What's the reason for that then? Why are we so special compared to chimps?
Well, I mean,
but only
evolution,
by the record.
We got lucky. I mean, evolution. If the dolphins are the cetaceans, there's some amazingly intelligent creatures. It's just evolution gave them fins, not hands. They can't make anything, but they're highly adapted to live in their environment. They may have more intelligence potential than we do. They just can't build anything like we do.
So you're saying it's purely the reversible digit accident or the moving from bipedal accident? It's just an accident that all of this happened. So everything I look
Fortunate
at is
for us.
basically
But
an
wait,
accident.
what do you mean an accident? Like, I'd say there's good reasons to why. There is even good reasons to why we have this specific brain size. Because yes, intelligence is amazing, but you actually need to fit that skull and brain through the vaginal cavity, and thus there was like this race between our brain size and what could be passed down through generations,
Without
because
killing
it's
a woman.
actually quite costly. It's great that we are so intelligent. Downside, we need to raise our children. We are not like models that are just bam and can just go and survive in the wilderness.
But isn't
So
that just
there's
like an
upside.
argument? Isn't that like an inverse argument of like the fine tuning of the vaginal or birth canal cavity diameter or something, right? Is that kind of like a
It's a natural selection. I wouldn't say fine
Timed by evolution. Yeah.
so everything that's accounted for then, so it's not just us by itself, but if I differentiate myself from all the other species, I guess if I'm hearing you right and the coffee is slowly working, you're just saying this just happens to be happenstance, right? It just happens to be we got lucky.
Well, I wouldn't say I don't. This will sound funny, but I don't believe in the concept of luck. But I think that it just happens that this is what we do as this animal species. We are biased towards intelligence because intelligence is our shtick. It's like being an animal that's extremely fast that can just get away would cherish how fast other members of their group are, but they would not care about an animal that can do arithmetic, because that's not going to help them in the savannah. They just need to get the hell out of there.
But I mean, yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciate why a self-referential thing would feel that way or look that way. But I'm more interested in the comparative bit. But what's better, being able to perform calculus or some abstract mathematics or running quickly?
But for like
subjective.
billions of years, the answer would have been the first. Would have been definitely getting away and not being able to do arithmetic.
There's an old joke, right? I think in evolutionary biology, we didn't evolve these sophisticated eyes, et cetera, to be able to escape carrots, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it wasn't carrots, but nevertheless, it's still.
And
it's
not only that, I think there's reasons to why we get our intelligence. There's a reason why predatory animals are smarter than those that aren't, because they need to outsmart their prey in order to eat. And so there is a good reason why us as omnivores were able to gain access through hunting to gain the materials needed to gain these bigger brains.
Yeah, I can see it in the evolutionary timeline, if you like, or in the kind of differentiation or speciation. I can see all these things, but doesn't it? I mean, it's just maybe it's just me. It's probably just me. I'm on a skeptic panel.
Most likely.
That's always the first answer. But can't you just see the huge difference between us and anything like us ever? So if I took all the species, all of them ever, including, let's say it's a magic instrument, and I can see all the ones that were extinct before we were around, and they've left no fossil record, for example. If I look at all of them, I see that we're not even close to our neighbors.
But see, your comparison, we're using us as the metric and being like, look how awesome we are. Nothing
Relatively
can do anything like us, but we can't. There are lots of things that we can't do naturally. I would say that because we're the tool maker, we can do all sorts of things. Like we can't produce sonar naturally. So we don't do what bats do. We can't swim as fast as a dolphin. And so if your metric is who is the smartest, well, intelligence is our shtick. So we are going to value it. And we're going to say, well, clearly everything else is why isn't the slug as smart as us? They clearly need to
Well, it's
step
not just,
up their
I hear
game.
your point, Amy. It's not just smartness, but it's more like if you imagine you were some sort of alien life form again, and you look at the universe and you can transcend time and space, and you look at the universe, you say, this species on this planet is not just, it's not intelligence per se, it's more than intelligence, right? It's so intelligent or so different in its cognitive functions and its socialized functions that it's managed to even inquire about us looking at it. No other species really has that ability, not just to escape the food web,
Introspective.
break the atom, split the atom, but it's so advanced that it can actually imagine itself asking questions about deontological ethics. No other species can think about deontological ethics.
Sure, but
Right.
all of that. So all of that is amazing and fantastic. I think a lot of it comes from consciousness, sentience, and like James said, really just introspection about the world. I think it's fantastic, but I don't think it's supernatural or given to us from a god.
Okay, that's separate, but you can. But for me, the argument to get to the argument to God is almost like you'd have to accept that there was something special, and then you'd ask the question of what is that specialness, for lack of a
It's
better
not
word,
even
something
special.
that's in that something is an evolutionary function.
I would even say consciousness is a reaction to the original way that life was able to come about on the planet, which was, generally speaking, it was collecting energy from the sun or from thermal vents, and that these conscious creatures that actually needed to think and make decisions was actually a reaction to other life.
So you're saying even consciousness itself, even though we have got nowhere near
An
solving it.
adaptation.
It's specifically right now, we only have it in animals. Like that's the only band of life. And I like to drill down on that for a lot of creationists because I think that we like to think that consciousness is everywhere when it's actually this really rare phenomena, even among the living kingdom. And respond, and then I have a comment for you to
No,
answer too.
I think I think I have a much more a humble view of consciousness. Like we even know from even if you look at the last conference with Penrose and Hammerhoff and stuff, we just don't even understand the nature of consciousness. And the more we look into it, it looks like it seems deeply embedded with actually the universe itself. It seems that even the information processing views, or all the other views of consciousness,
I'm against
seems that
that.
this thing that you think is very rare, and I agree, it's very, very rare. And I would agree, even lower in quote types of consciousness are nothing near ours, seems almost inseparable from the nature of the universe itself.
So
I don't
the
think consciousness
concept
is
you're
just
talking about,
I don't think it's just a biological process.
sounds like sounds like panpsychism, and
Not
it is.
panpsychism. No,
Well, the
much more.
notion that consciousness is a fundamental element or of the universe is that it's something much
Oh no,
deeper.
I'm not a panpsychist. No, I mean much deeper and much more technical sense. It looks like it looks like just the information interaction necessary to perform consciousness. I'm not saying the information in the universe and the substrate is conscious. I'm not a panpsychist, but I'm saying that the depth of that interaction between matter, for example, and consciousness is so deep, without being a panpsychist, that it seems like for this to have come out by accident, by the long tail end of some evolutionary biology fitness function, sounds like a really weak explanation, right?
I don't think it came out, but it's not just chance. It's a niche. It's that predatory animals that feed on other animals became a niche. And so you can see that with animals, but you can also see that in extreme cases, like with a Venus flytrap that has to catch food.
Yeah, but I mean, but I'm not sure that's really helping me understand because it's almost like you've got I dare to use the word presupposition that the explanation is by natural selection. I'm saying I don't think it really is. I don't think it could ever be. Even if I was an atheist,
I would say I was driven towards that. It wasn't a presupposition that, I mean, and Okay, I do want to ask you this one question. Then I'm going to ask a thing by Shane the
The coffee is
Shane the
slowly
Skeptic.
working in my brain.
But no, answer this for me, because I take
Whip it out.
consciousness is my thing very seriously. And I really stand by what I view as a medical definition of it, because I lose my consciousness, or at least when I don't take the medication for I lose it. And so my question to you is, what do you really think consciousness is? What do you think its purpose, its function?
I think there's the biological layer of description of consciousness, which would be the ability to detect the 3/4 transitions of the brain state, i.e., from sleeping, waking. So basically, if I was performing, if I was giving you some sort of anesthetic, I would be looking at which part of your brain is in what state to make it from moving. That's that naive flesh explanation of consciousness. That use of the word. Then there's consciousness, which is the ability to be self-aware, think of the heart problem, and worse. And then I think there's the outer, the most challenging view of consciousness, which would be how is something situated in the heart problem seem to be related to the actual substrate of matter, which requires its existence in order to support self-reflection. So there's consciousness at the medical level. Hey, how do I make you go to sleep, change your brain state? So I'm not sure if you're looking for that answer. Then there's the question of, is consciousness I think, therefore I am type of answer. And then there's the outer, which I think is the hardest problem, harder than the hard problem, which is the more we look into things like constructed theory, the more we look into the limits of Turing machines, it looks like the universe is supporting at its highest form information processing at the deepest level in physics. And therefore it looks like information processing is wired deeply into quantum mechanics, if not lower into field theory. And it looks like certain classes of things seem to be interacting with it. So I'm not sure which answer you wanted. I think you might have wanted the first one.
Well, I mean, I guess I would accept I would lean towards the first definition. I just want to know, I believe there is a why to why consciousness exists. Mm-hmm. And that always isn't the case. We don't know why gravity exists. We can always explain it. Mm-hmm. I think that there is a why to why consciousness exists. I would like to know, do you think that there is any reason for why?
Yes, I think the reason is that I'll try not to be godlike about this, but I think we were created with a purpose, or you might say evolved with a purpose. We evolved with a purpose, and what makes us special, if I assume we're special for argument's sake as a premise and move on, we were special because we've been given, like you say, the tools. We've been given a tool to find the maker. So we've been given, we've been given the tools to be able to understand the universe. So therefore, our brains have a level of consciousness, and only we have that level of consciousness, and we might have to evolve even past it to be able to detect why we exist.
But if I could freeze you for a second, that is what I think I'm talking about, because it sounds like you're saying that we have this consciousness for a theological reason, to have this connection with God, when I believe that it is a natural reason, that we actually have consciousness, not for mysterious reasons, but because it helps us survive as an organism, and thus it got passed down.
Yeah, even let me take my atheist hat off. Let me pretend I'm an atheist for a second and have this conversation with theist.
Put on that atheist hat.
Yeah, let's take it off temporarily. It's still nesting on my knees. So
come on in, the water's nice.
From that position of comfort. No, but even if I argued, for example, okay, no, because one explanation is the type that of one of a derived consequentialism. We're only here, and we only have this consciousness because we survived the tail end of evolutionary niches that got us here, and therefore all I can do is roll forward that projection, say therefore everything is a survival and evolution function. Okay, that's one type of explanation, but it doesn't seem good enough for me. It seems like a weak class of explanation, and because it's not going to ever answer questions like what's our place in the universe. The answer will always be to survive another biological niche. So there's a biological evolution explanation. Then there's another explanation that says, and again, I'm not at this point in this conversation right now, I'm an atheist. Then as an atheist, I go, but hang on, if I can look at the edge of the universe, look at the stars, I know the nearest, until I bust the speed of light for travel, I know I've got this kind of travel horizon. Surely something is calling me to keep going further and further, deeper into matter, further out into space. There's something pulling me. And again, I'm an atheist in this conversation right now. It's pulling me towards something that isn't going to have a biological explanation. That's going to have some other class of explanation, isn't it? Because it couldn't be an evolutionary fitness function, because there's no need for me to go to the other stars. There's nothing in an evolutionary explanation that tells me why I wish to go 100 light years from now, far away, right? There's nothing. So there's something else that can't be a biological explanation. It must be some other class of explanation, right? Would you agree?
What to explore, or?
Well, I mean, I'm just saying, let's say I'm an atheist. We're all atheists right on the chat. And I'm saying, okay, so I accept evolution, I accept your standard models, I expect how we got here, I expect standard model of physics. And I'm saying, okay, so if I were to explain why I want to explore the stars, why am I going to want to do this? That explanation wouldn't be given by evolution, because there'd be nothing else to evolve against, right?
I think there's a natural desire for us to be curious and understand the world around us, and the more data we collect about things, the better models we can build for reality that will help us survive.
In fact, I can give two answers for that.
Okay.
I'm going to start with the cynic answer, and then I'm going to go with the positive answer. The cynic answer is that we, just like bacteria and viruses, our goal is to spread. That is the goal. It is very much driven into us.
Multiply, yeah.
Is to
search for resources.
Is to have homeostasis, and then once you have homeostasis, to split, to multiply, either through single-celled organisms, which I learned. Fascinating thing I've been looking at lately is there's actually a precursor to sex called mating types. That single-celled organisms have mating types, and that there are actual thousands of sexes, that fungus can have thousands of sexes, which is a crazy concept to think about, but that their microbial level, they have different mating types. Similar.
Throw out the 56 genders.
Which is great, and yeah. I'm not being postmodernist. If you do the calculations and you do like the opposites, that they can make compatible pairs, you get like thousands of genetic combinations. Though some have just a dozen or just one or two. But before we go off into, I forget, Shane wanted to ask, and anyone. If you have questions, comments, one-liners for anyone on the topic and on the panel, please send them to James W. and myself at Amy Newman. But please ask the guest if diseases are also something special that couldn't have came from chance.
I think diseases, if you mean diseases at the human level, then yeah, they would be, I would see them as obstacles in our environment to survival. But just so back to Amy's point, I think you were going to give me two types of answers before we got a little bit lost in the multi-mating preborn thing. But once more, even if you say it was exploration for resources as a biological explanation, exploring my environment, or I said it was a propensity to replicate argument, they both seem to be, they don't really seem to be sufficient answers to why I want to probe the universe. It's not an explanation of why I want to split. It's almost like you're begging the question in a sense, because you're fear-balling the desire to explore, to split the atom, because there's no immediate obvious benefit for me to split the atom.
And that was the other thing I do have to say. The other benefit beside the cynic version is that, yes, there is the fact that we do seem to have wonder and awe. Well, I would say we're curious animals, just like you can see it in a cat. We can't help ourselves. We see something, we want to know something, and we go and we fiddle around with it.
But can you see what I mean? It's almost like we're doing ourselves a disservice by lowering the quality of explanation for the phenomena, right? You're almost trying to minimize. If I was using like David Doric's understanding of explanatory power or something, that's a very weird answer in terms of explanatory power to the question I'm posing. You're almost saying, "Oh, it's just because because I've got to fiddle."
But you're just saying because God gave it to us, right? That is the solution. Is just God gave us the chance to be curious, or the awe.
Oh no! God didn't give us. God gave us a chance to be curious so that we can find Him. The last bit is important. Without that, the theist argument makes no sense, right? So
I
put my theist hat off now. I'm just being an atheist. We can make it easy because I'm just challenging atheist to atheist type challenge. I'm like, I don't buy that explanation. So if I look at explanatory power in science as defined by, say, either David Deutsch, right, or even the Popper's level definition, I don't find that we have this fait accompli because we live in an eco web, and therefore the need to resource explore or replicate is a sufficiently good reason, a sufficiently good explanation, I beg your pardon, for why we are in such a state that we are. I think it's almost like a terrible explanation. Do you understand what I mean? I'm not invoking God for a second.
I'm trying, because you're trying to say from an atheist hat. I'm trying to say, why is either of the two explanations I gave, and I would say one that James also gave, why
similar.
isn't that not enough for explaining why we want to go to the stars? I honestly, I cannot understand. I don't. So in contrast, I do not see how God gets us to an explanation of why we want to go visit.
The God explanation is much simpler because we've been given a path. Even if I was, let's say, not a Christian, and I just created some new God, and I call this new God some Neo-Promethean God, that is giving me a purpose is to discover and find it. It's a way back home.
Decided to make Amy your goddess.
That's, I mean, it's a much easier, it's much more powerful explanation, right? Something created us. Let's pretend it was a space, another species that transcends space-time. Let's pretend there's no God. It'd be more comfortable for you guys to imagine some aliens, right? They're sitting here, they unroll this experiment called the universe, and they thought, hey, it's a science project for the alien kids. One of these alien kids said, hey, I'm making this universe. Hey, look, mommy and daddy, look how cool it is. Look, my little rock has created little primates that stood up. Look how cool it is. And my experiment, because I'm going to get an A+, is let me see if these little things can find us. That's a much more powerful explanation than we're just hanging out because we want to just replicate or resource explore, right? That's not as powerful an explanation as the alien kid telling his alien parent, look, mommy, I got an A* because I made this little universe. It ran for 15 billion years, which is a microsecond in alien time. And look, the A* was the creature trying to get out of the box.
Can I just irradiate? You think that instead of, because the fact that it seems like we are biologically driven to spread and have an innate curiosity, you don't think that is a better explanation than there may be sounds like you are saying either an alien or an otherworldly thing outside the universe that created the sandbox? Yeah. I don't know. I think our explanation is simpler and more elegant. I don't understand.
And I think it's much simpler, but I don't think it's fitting. I think it's simpler, but it's more base, right? It's like I eat because, for example, I would just say I just eat because I'm hungry. It's not going to explain cuisine, right? It's going to explain, okay, I like tastier food because tastier food better, yummy. It's still not going to explain the entire culinary disciplines. It's not going to explain why I saute my spinach before it touches my poached egg. It's not going to give me an explanation.
But see, when you talk about a lot of those, I think when people ask a lot of those questions, especially meaning questions, you can understand where they come from biologically. Like, what do you want to do with your life? Well, I just want to wake up every day and be happy. I feel like there's good dopamine reasons to why you'd want to wake up every day and lead a healthy, fulfilling life. And it wouldn't, you could walk away with a naturalistic reason for that instead of because a external intelligence wanted us to. Also, well, what is up, Stephanie?
But I'm even parking the external intelligence. But I'm saying, no, the explanation seems very base, doesn't it? I'm trying to compare explanation to explanation, and I give you a simple example. So if I like poached eggs with sautéed spinach or sautéed kale, my one explanation could be I'm eating this because I'm hungry, and I need to eat. But it wouldn't really explain all the effort into refining the way the poached eggs and sautéed kale work together. The explanation is correct. It's a base explanation. I need energy and I must consume amount of energy. But I could just have had a slice of toast, for example, right?
So it's not really a powerful enough explanation for the phenomena. It's almost like a get out of jail card.
How does God have any explanatory power?
Does God have any explanatory power?
Yes.
Absolutely. So it has absolute explanatory power. It's the simplest explanation. It's really,
to me, it is the exact opposite, because it's a complex thing, something we only see in animals, in high-level organisms that have evolved, and it's something that doesn't have a body. Yeah.
Only in humans. No other species have gods.
No other species have. Oh, well, I think that gods are contingent on humans. I think if humans didn't exist, neither would gods.
Agreed. And that's actually almost making the case that, therefore, if there was a god,
you're almost an atheist.
If there was a god, then it has decided that this species is the only species that requires or seeks a god. Remember, most people have always sought gods to make it easier. And therefore, it looks like wired into us and only us is the need for the thing that made us.
I think that's an anthropomorphization of things, though. I
just say God in the abstract sense of something that, let me just call it the transcendental, right? So let's include the Church of Entropy types and everyone else, right?
Well, I mean, because but Church, I would say the Church of Entropy would actually go more towards the panpsychism, is that she believes that consciousness is a fundamental structure of nature. If I'm doing you wrong, Jen, tell me, but she's almost thinking that it's a label battle. She's almost somewhere between you and I would say, on these type of views.
Who's that?
Jen.
Oh, Jen.
But I will say, before we're gonna give you about 10 more minutes. We've been having fun, and then I'm gonna send the link back up there if any other person would like to join us at the end of those 10 minutes. But if not, we're then gonna have our little end of discussion and then go towards that Discord after show.
Yeah, but you see, let's take Jen, God bless Jen and stuff, right? Hey, weed and yoga is a wonderful combination, and physics, right? So, but if you look at it, you say, but nevertheless, something inside Jen or something is looking for an explanation that has to be transcendental. It must transcend what our existence is, right? It can't not be transcendental. It can't be material. Now, you might argue, the explanation of the transcendental in the case of panpsychism, or in the case of, say, paganism, say, Hinduism, for example, is embedded within the creation. Sure, that's one way to try to explain the transcendental downwards. But nevertheless, we're still looking for the transcendental, right? We're still searching for the sacred, whatever that means to you.
Well, see, in that that's a bunch of, let's break that apart, because
rip it.
When you transcend just means to surpass something. I used to, when my debate at DebateCon, I tried to say that, when it comes to wanting to function in society, it transcends just wanting to be transgender. That's really just what everyone, no matter if you're biological or transgender, we are just trying to be a better human, and thus it transcends that one category. But then once you're starting to say it transcends the universe, it's almost like we are breaking the language barrier down, because universe was the word that meant everything. Now we've kind of expanded that to a cosmos that would mean a multiverse. But then I feel like anytime, if we were to ever find a God, it would not be supernatural. It would not be transcendent. It would be we would have to just expand our definition of the universe and the natural world to now include this God.
No, there's a problem with that, Amy, a deep problem with that, because let's call that word universe, and let's pretend the word universe includes everything that is physical, including expanding its possible definitions in the future to all possible physical states. Let's assume physics in 1,000 years from now. No, transcend doesn't mean that. Transcend means that which is outside the thing. The thing that transcends something, something that breaks its limits.
But see, that's my problem. The problem is every time you were to transcend, the moment we would be able to detect it, it would be like an ever rising force field. The moment that we were to detect something right in it, well, it wouldn't be supernatural anymore.
But you know that the problem with that
natural.
argument is you've got again a presupposition that the only thing that is material is included in that ever expanding envelope of detection and description. But by definition, transcendental also keeps expanding to beyond that. So as soon as you find something that is physical, it is no longer metaphysical by definition. Metaphysical will never have evidence that is physical.
Have we ever seen anything that is metaphysical?
Yeah,
metaphysical by definition. Therefore, that's why the evidence and reason arguments are easy for me to quash, because I'm like, in your presupposition is you're looking for material evidence.
You want me to get
the supernatural is not natural. Otherwise, it wouldn't be supernatural, right?
You want me to get rid of the political correctness of that word? Wait, we're just gonna take the word metaphysical. We're gonna take a little cut here. We're just gonna
Whoa,
physical. There we go. Look at that. We made it.
But you see, by cutting that, haven't you actually, by chopping off that something, haven't you actually just limited it?
Circumcised it.
Yeah.
Because I think the physical world is what we have evidence of. That is what we can actually.
But can you see the fundamental presupposition in your claim, though? You're saying that therefore the only thing I accept is the physical, and if it's metaphysical, that it cannot be reduced to the physical, it therefore isn't real.
But do you think that we should believe in things that we do not have good evidence for?
Absolutely. I think not believe. I think we should. Not absolutely. Not believe, Amy. Worse than that, I believe they should be the only axioms that make any sense.
Like
you're selling yourself short, otherwise, Amy. You're selling yourself short. Like you're saying, I'm only willing to accept I'm only accepting gold level of service. But I'm saying, hey, there's this platinum stuff. You're like, I don't know what platinum is. I'm like, but really, there's this platinum stuff. You're like, I can only sense gold.
Give me that platinum. Give me an example of an axiom that I have.
I'm here to preach, baby. I'm here to preach in my own special way. No, because really, the transcendental, by definition, would be the most special. It must be the containing concept for everything that is material. Let me give you some example. I know you're into computer science. Congratulations again and stuff for your degree, your master's. But even the human brain has what, 10 to the 80, 10 to the 80, 10 to 80 or 90, whatever it is, neurons. If I drew the mathematical outer power set of all possible thoughts I could ever think for one human brain, I've got a limit function, right? The only thing Amy could ever think in, say, 80, God willing, 100 years of life, all the possible things you could think and all the possible things all 8 billion people could think is a limited set. It's bounded, isn't it? It can't be bigger. So there must be something larger than it. There must be something that contains it. There must be something beyond, above, and around it. Because otherwise you're just saying the universe just is as an axiom. Because why? Because all I have is a presupposition is materialism giving me naturalism, giving me.
We have persistent evidence of the empirical world. Yes. In fact, when we try to defy it, when we try to just say, go up in front of a car and just neo stuff and just say the car is not there, the empirical world beats us every time and forces us into reality.
It limits us. I don't think it beats us, right? So it's like, I can invoke what's topical of the film, what film's topical sci-fi, like Dune, right? So I can invoke the litany of fear, right? I shall not fear, for fear is the mind killer, fear is the little death that brings total obliteration. I will face my fear. What is the litany of fear in Dune? The litany of fear is a call to the transcendental, right? Of course, when you stand there in front of a 18-wheeler truck and you stand there, you're expecting to be crushed by the truck, right? But what is the call for the litany of that fear? It's to transcend the fear, right?
But there are good reasons why that fear. In fact, I think the fear has very good biological evolutionary reasons and has less to do with something that would transcend reality.
But it's almost like you're putting yourself, and this is why I want you to break free. I want you to break out of your box, right? You're putting yourself in a box, and I think you're too special to be in a box. You're in a box, and you're saying, my box has got this evidence, and this is my cage, my gilded cage, right? And if I can't explain it, and explain is a fascinating word, right? Explain comes from Latin, right? Which comes from explanar, to lay out on a plane, to see all the parts, and therefore lose the whole. So every time I explain something, what I'm doing is I'm kind of laying it on a plane, and simultaneously by explaining it, I'm losing its whole. So I think the thing what's happening here for materialists is that they are looking for materialist, naturalistic explanations
And therefore, they're not looking up. They're looking down. They're not looking up. They're looking in. They're not looking up. They're looking at. They're explaining down.
But I think we are. I think that the naturalists, if I may say, be as bold as to claim, we are the ones that are actually going out and looking when we want to know how life formed. We go and we actually go and do the tests.
We're the ones producing tangible results.
Exactly. And then the creationists, what they tend to do in the opposite is they just attack scientific theories and don't present anything. Like the creationist, I could go over, I would say, all of the creationist scientist papers in the next 5 minutes, in the next 5 seconds, going once, going twice, and there we go. We're done.
But that's of course because the whole point of the metaphysics is its job is not to deal with the physics. The physics is dealt with the materialist. Your job, Mr. Physicist, is to deal with the physics. There's no way you can ever get a physical explanation for the metaphysics by definition. Therefore, you will never have evidence that you're looking for because you'll just say, as soon as there's evidence, let me give you a simple example. People say, what would it take for you to believe in God? Oh, he must appear with a white man in the sky, simultaneously freeze the world, open the heavens. The first thing you'll all do is start measuring him. You'll start saying, can I do a double-blind trial? Yeah, can I attach some probes into him? Right? So as soon as it becomes physical, it is no longer metaphysical. So the question
wasn't God physical, like at least in the Old Testament? Wasn't he talking to people, having conversations, kicking butt, taking names? Yeah,
well, absolutely. But in my faith, particularly, yes, we believe there's been moments of revelation because the transcendental can always come back in and deal with the physical, right? When it needs to and it wants to, and therefore, absolutely,
It's my problem with an all-powerful God. It's just that he just doesn't seem that powerful. It's that what we constantly. Yes. Well, can I give you the example that James and I consistently want empirical evidence? That's the standard that we get. And what we get instead is flack about empirical evidence. That's not what you really want. You wouldn't believe if we gave you empirical evidence.
I'm not saying that, Amy. I'm saying no, but Amy, I'm saying every time you would get physical evidence, you would just add it to your toolkit of physical explanations.
But wouldn't you think if God came down and really started macro managing Earth and started having conversations with people and
setting up meetings and stuff?
Don't you think we would be taking this shit?
You mean like Karen at 2:30? At 2:30, I got a meeting with God, and I got to go to the laundry.
Right? That actually makes sense. I think to a lot of theists, they'd be like, "Well, that would be craziness," but that actually makes way more sense. If I am a god and want to have like personal relationships with them, I would be talking with them. I'd be communicating. I'd be like, "No, I really don't want you guys having the butt sex. You guys stop with the butt sex. I don't like it, and I created everything." But instead,
it seems like, it's almost like it's not begging the question, but you again have this circle presupposition thing that unless it is material, unless it is physical, it doesn't have any value for you. And therefore, something that is not physical can never.
Because otherwise,
but Amy, if you ask other people who believe in God, I've traveled to about 100 countries in my life. I've spoken to people of many faiths. We all share something in common. We don't put the physical as having primacy.
I agree, but I think that's a mistake. I think
change my mind.
You should be putting your hope and your confidence into the empirical methodology that we refer to as science, the Latin for knowledge. That is what we should be going for.
Of course, but I am a scientist. I like science. And science has its place.
And I'm happy for that. And
but science
we'll say.
How will science ever answer this question, Amy? How will science ever explain the metaphysical to me?
I don't believe the metaphysical is a thing. And so to say, how does it explain? It's like saying, well, science doesn't prove the supernatural. And it's like, well, I don't believe supernatural exists. So of course it doesn't.
But if that's true, then science has revealed nothing because physicists can't explain what the T-1 state of, even if you can define what T-1 means for the universe.
But
the
best explanation we know nothing about physics because we can't look past Planck time?
No, but it's more like physics is just saying, hey, we don't know, bro. This stuff is just here. This just happened.
It's describing, but that's
We
what
know more than
science
that.
is. We're describing it. We are not prescribing it.
Yeah, exactly. But for me, that seems like hardly very inspiring and special, isn't it? I'm not exactly going to go, hey, okay, what happened to the universe? Yeah, it's 10 to the minus 15 years. Yeah, and then what happened? We don't know. Could have been a spontaneous a quantum field eruption.
But
I'm
why
like, wow.
is that not the
Yeah, you
proper
think
answer? When you don't know, you say, I
it's not
don't
even a
know.
question
It's the
whether it's
most
proper or
honest.
not. It's because remember, there's no science without philosophy, and there's no science to philosophy without the metaphysics. You must take a metaphysical presupposition to get to a scientific philosophical position: correspondence theory, coherence theory, instrumentalism, whichever camp you fall in. But those things are downstream, and you get this physics, right? My evidence is physics, right?
Why
I
would
look at
you
my evidence,
separate that out?
and you're sort of somehow saying that, hey, this physical only explanation is the best thing we have because it corresponds to reality or it is coherent. My ontology is coherent to reality.
Although science came from natural philosophy, it is not philosophy. You still need philosophy to create a hypothesis, but after the hypothesis is created, you then need to put it in the hands of testable methodologies and peer review and the collection of evidence. You actually need to go out there and put your money to your mouth, because it can't just be syllogisms. It can't just be an argument. It has to be people being able to find out if you're right or wrong.
I'm not sure what you exactly mean by that, but within science themselves, that's not true, right? I either have correspondence, I basically either have realism or anti-realism, right? Within science, the scientific method applies to both. I can either say, look, let me give you an example. Here's my Newtonian 3 laws of motion. Here's Faraday, or here's Schrodinger's wave equation. Now, whether or not I commit to the ontology of Schrodinger's wave equation as being true is a philosophical position in science. All scientists would agree. If you're a realist, you're going to say it corresponds to truth. If you're an anti-realist, you're just going to say it's a description of something and not committing to truth. So there's no science without philosophy of science, right? I mean, I'll give you a simple example. Is Schrodinger's equation true? I mean, does it actually describe reality, or is it just the current best fit I have?
That once again is an example, but that is an example of something I would say rare in science, because we are dealing with something strange. We're dealing with quantum mechanics, and it may be that it is hard. Our interpretation of it may break down because of how we understand consciousness, how we understand life and death, whether the cat actually is alive.
No, I mean, not quantum mechanics. Let me go before quantum mechanics. I don't really understand my difference in the philosophy of science. No, let's forget quantum mechanics. Let's just go to Newtonian stuff. When I look at Newton's second law, Newton's equation formula for, say, gravity, right? Or let's say for the gravitational force, right? Is that equation giving me a correspondence to reality? Is a philosophical position in science called realism, or is it just corresponding? Is it just coherent to reality? In which case, I'm an anti-realist in science. In both cases, I'm using the scientific method for just Newtonian physics, but I'm taking a philosophical position, right? There's no science without philosophy of science, right?
I would say you can have philosophy of science, but that doesn't mean science is philosophy. They are
no, it isn't. No. So the philosophy of science, particularly, is the outer onion ring over science, right?
And so, before I do want to say that I am sending love to. I saw Tickle Take sending so much love.
So much.
One more comment. Did we already read?
And I must get breakfast as well.
Well, yeah. I was gonna say.
Go eat your baked beans, Ralph.
Well, this will be. I can guess. Blaster Master, send in love, and this is gonna be our last question. I think I'll let you answer this, and then I'll let you have your final say on the thought. But Blaster Master wants to ask: can the guest distinguishing the difference between the metaphysical and the imaginary?
Yeah, I would define the imaginary as the possibility of space of what a human can imagine, and the metaphysics is the thing that is the outer envelope of everything that is physical. So I could imagine things that are true or not true. I can imagine things that are completely abstract, square root of -1, for example, or some really complicated set theory. And then in all cases, that's just me imagining possibilities. The metaphysics is the thing that is the outer box, the Russian doll of all physics. There's no physics without metaphysics.
And all right, like when we get our theist brothers and sisters on, we could probably go on forever. But we are just happy.
We go on until the next coming.
Oh, baby. They told me it was going to be a second coming, and I thought the first was great already. But, Ralph, we're glad to have you on. We have been calling me skeptical on the origin of life, natural or supernatural. What are your final thoughts?
I shall leave you both. Thanks ever so much for having me on. But Z Frau is giving me Z look for Z breakfast. So I should do that. But let me leave you with a single reference to the Bible. John 8:32. Ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. And I think the skeptics need to keep pursuing their skeptical hobbies and activities, but ultimately you will come to the only truth that matters, which is God exists. Thanks for having me on, Amy.
Thank you so very much.
Take care, James. Have a good day. Have a good show.
I'm back anytime.
Thank you so very much. We love having theists on the show, or really just anyone who disagrees with us. And of course, we just love having anyone who has a $400 suit on. We also are a little bit biased. So if you fit into any of those two categories, you're always welcome on our show. I mean, I'm pretty sure you have maybe, unless anyone else has something really interesting to show us, I think we're going to wrap it up and head over to the Discord.
It's almost 4.
I'm going to send. Yeah, so I think we are going to, but we are sending love. It was a fantastic calling me skeptical. I'll throw the Discord in there. But what do you think, James? We have been talking. We've been calling me skeptical on the origin of life, natural or supernatural. Biology and evolution, I think, has been on mine and especially yours. So I don't think we're convinced so far of that whole supernatural thing, though.
I know I'm not. I don't think you're convinced either, but it still is good to hear what everybody has to say about it. And going to be important debate prep because I'm sure I'll be throwing some of this stuff next month.
Oh my. Flattery gets you everywhere. Just putting that out there. But yes, that's going to be a big debate, and there's going to be an after show on Atheist Junior's channel.
Woo-hoo.
So check out another fantastic non-believer out there, but we'll be on Praise I Am That I Am. Oh no, Standing for Truth. Standing for Truth's channel. And then
Darth Dawkins tomorrow on Praise I Am.
And then Darth
It's going to be a dumpster fire.
Sending love, Titan.
Night, Titan.
But yeah, my final thoughts as we are wrapping this up, it's just there are many reasons as to why life seems to have arisen naturally. It is not by chance. It was not random, which are two words that I see get strawmanned by creationists all the time. Instead, there are reasons like the circumstellar habitable zone, just a fancy way of saying we are in the band around the sun that is not on fire or freezing. You know, if we were Mercury, we'd be too close. Venus, ironically, is within the circumstellar habitable zone, but because of a runaway gas effect, it has become the hottest planet in the solar system. A warning for people who watch the Earth getting warmer. And then it could be too far away. You know, you're in Pluto. You are you're in Uranus. It's too cold, though there may be life on Jupiter because Jupiter has its own, because of how many moons, it almost has its own little thing going on. But we
also, it's not random because we also have the laws of chemistry acting on these compounds. And, you know, not random. It's not random.
In fact, it would be surprising if there was life in like a frozen wasteland or something that you would not expect would be habitable. Then you'd go, wow, there must be some sort of intelligence securing the fact that life can exist.
Although, even though not how it started, but life on Earth has diversified so much that there are creatures who can survive in virtually any
called extremophiles.
Yeah. So life finds a way. Evolution works. It works.
That's okay, Jafreak. We're sending you love. And we're sending love to all our theist brothers and sisters, and of course the atheists, because the non-believer community does it #better.
We do.
And I'm just gonna be sending. I see. As we pull out Patty P, Flums, Stephanie, Master QT, Doorknob Head, Jafreak, all of you out there. Titan that were hanging with us, we want to send you love. We want to, but all of the Shanes of the world, we want to send, and Nick. And I guess with that, I actually would like to thank you all on this episode of Calling Me Skeptical, the origin of life, natural or supernatural, where we opened up those internet phone lines to see if anyone could help us understand if life came about by a natural or supernatural means for a natural good time. Yeah, look, and Gizmo is I would say, the adamant philosopher of our time.
Definitely.
And he makes way better points than theologians, though. Who blames them? I'm sorry.
It was more science than Ken Hook.
More science. Look, just give me 15 minutes with the children, and I'll teach them the real science in the classrooms. We should be teaching real science. But yes, I do want to
Dr. Harold P. Ness from Johnson University.
Oh my, now we're talking. I do want to thank my co-host, James W., along with our guests, Nick and Ralph, along with the people in chat, our awesome mods who make this stream so great, and of course, lovely viewers like you who make this channel even possible. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe, and then hit that bell icon to all so that you can get reminders to join our live streams. What's up, internet? Or hey, leave a comment once the video's done. After the show, we will be heading over to the Skeptic and Ranting Discord server, the link of which is in the description below. Lastly, if you would like to help us make even more content, we offer some perks for our supporters by checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I am Amy Newman, and we will see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z. Good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.
Mwah.